Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. As opposed to the regular seasonal podcast where we look at a movie 1 minute at a time, this is our sidecast where we actually bring in a guest or two, and we talk about their lives 1 moment at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I'm your co-host, Walt Murray.
Walt, it's going to be a great one tonight. I just feel it. You and I had a chance to be on their podcast a little while ago. In our season 3, they invited us to talk about our format and how things had shifted around. And we said, we've got to have them back on our show. So we're going to have a couple of folks from Clubhouse join us in just a few minutes.
Well, and I've been looking forward to this because, you know, sometimes when you have a guest on and you've never met them before, or you've had kind of limited contact before they come on, you never really know what you're going to get. But when we were on Clubhouse, Caroline and Michael were just awesome, and we had a blast with them. So this is kind of one of those, like having Tim Andrews or one of the other Radio Labyrinth folks. It's great having a friend on who you know you're going to have a good time with.
Yeah, we're going to let them explain who they are, how they teamed up, what is Clubhouse, all of that. We're going to let them do that over the course of the show as we dive into their background. But for us right now, Walt. Something that we've been kind of keeping a little bit of a lid on, and it's sort of kept us from diving into Willy Wonka, which is the movie we really want to start diving into. And I think we've figured out the format, how we're going to do it. But you've had a couple of life things going on your end.
Yeah,
well, first of all, I'm not talking about the fact that you had a sauna for about a week and a half when, like, Mother Nature went up to 91 degrees and your air conditioner said, I'm heading south.
Yeah, I quit. Yeah, that was fun.
And I'm not talking about the boat. That was last season.
Yes, that was last season. I never want my life to be too boring, so I'm just at the back end of going through a divorce. And the main reason I wanted to mention it, I'm not going to air any dirty laundry or anything. Actually, my wife and I are probably getting along better now than we have been.
I was going to cue Don Henley right here.
So, but we had an attorney that I had hired, and he really dropped the ball. But we've had a guest on the show, Brad Stevens, a couple times with a couple of the different side movies that we've done. And Brad really picked up the ball for us and did an awesome job as our attorney. And so I wanted to publicly thank Brad for his great work. And if you're in Georgia and you need an attorney for probate or whatever, Brad is the guy to go to. He's in Cartersville, Georgia. We may even post a link to his website because Brad did such a great job for us.
Yeah, it's Brad Stevens, attorney at law. He's a very good guy. One of the smartest guys I think I've ever met in terms of his, like, what is it called? Eidetic memory, where he can read something and pretty much recall it verbatim, which does well when you're in the business of law. And he'll admit this. He's got the hickest, most country Cassville accent, but he's never going to be a smarter guy than this guy. At least I haven't.
No, and he really, within 24 hours of me calling him and saying, hey, this other attorney has really dropped the ball here, he had everything nearly complete. And, and like I said, we're not fighting over anything. So he was able to go in, tweak the few things that we needed tweaked, and answer a lot of questions for us that both of us had. And he's just been fantastic. And of course, he was on when we did the Big Lebowski, and he quoted one quote after another quote after another quote. So he is a super sharp guy. He's also got a book out there somewhere.
Yes, Reflections in Muddy Waters.
That's right. Yeah, and I really need to pick that book up and read it.
It's a great little sort of country anecdotes. Grew up as the son of a store owner called the Cassville Grocery Store in a little town called Cassville. Didn't even have a stoplight. It truly was that stereotypical small town you always hear about. We didn't even have a stoplight. I mean, Cassville is a small but very tight-knit community. And so Reflections in Muddy Waters is about his look at remembrances of all the tales, the stories, the characters. He did change the names to save the stupid, but he has had a lot of fun with that, and I think he's working on another book. So very creative, very fun guy, and he's been part of our podcast, and his day job is attorney, but I think he is an all-around sports guy, entertainer. He loves to talk, loves movies, and so a great fit for us here on the Wilder Ride.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy, and if you live in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and can't understand why anybody would want to live in a small town, that the stories that Brad tells are going to give you a really good idea of why.
Hey, you know what? Brad thought the big move for him career-wise, and he did. He and his wife packed up, went to New York City, not just the state, Manhattan. Went there for 3 years, law firm there, practiced in the big city, and realized, you know what? I've got a kid on the way now. I don't want to raise that child in New York City. I want to go back to where I can show him, where I grew up. I want to show him some fields and some country. And he said, you know what? I'd rather be back home.
Yeah, I can't blame him a bit.
So, wow, I didn't know we were going to turn this into a PSA for Brad Stevens, attorney at law.
Yeah, well, it deflects from other things. So.
Well, Susan and I started our own podcast, a separate sidecast for what we do here. My wife and I, we do one called the Marriage Fit Podcast, as both of us recovering from first marriages and deciding, hey, the first time was so much fun, let's do it again. We're in the midst of the blended marriage, blended family, and that's been a lot of fun, kind of not only recapping our stories, but the last couple of weeks we were able to have a couple of guests on, and when we get to the entertainment segment, one of the books that I was able to read ahead of time to prepare for it, we had Dr. Larry Waldman, a lifelong child and blended family and divorced family counselor, who said we still don't do enough in teaching newly divorced people how to handle marriage 2, because if you think the divorce rate is high on marriage 1, it's even higher on marriage 2. And when you throw in blended families, you realize there's still an ex waiting in the wings for both of you who has some say-so. You've got ex-family that wants to still have some say-so on the kids. It creates even more turmoil than marriage 1. So he's like, we don't do enough to counsel people on how to handle getting back into a marriage, maybe marriage 2 if you've got kids. And so we talked about that in our most recent episode. So I'll mention his book and everything a little bit later. But what you're going through, I did, my wife did. I wish I could say you're special, but you're not.
No, I am not special. No, and
you are to me, but I mean,
well, that's because I give you bourbon and
careful. You start with a "b," and I was like, whoa. You better say a word quickly. Blow pops. Wait, no, bourbon. Okay, bourbon. Bourbon's good.
Yes, bourbon and good books. So,
you did another B word: bourbon and books.
Bourbon and books. So,
and then people are like, that must be code for down south. What happens?
Well, you have to live here to understand. So,
we wouldn't do nothing, just a little bourbon and books. Oh my God.
Well, I've actually turned a couple of people onto your podcast, and I think you're right that I did not realize that the number of second marriage divorces is so high. Mm-hmm. And you'd think that we'd kind of learn from our first one, what not to do.
You want to know what the biggest thing, according to Dr. Waldman, and I know it's a weird segue here, but since we're in the middle of talking of life changes and things, his big thing is people rush into that second marriage way too fast.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
And he said a lot of times, he said, I've seen it. I've been doing this for 40 years. Usually the new mom or the new dad in that household shows up at the divorce proceeding. Like she's there to support her man or he's there to support her because that's what probably started the breakup, or they've already figured out who they're going to land with. And it's like they haven't even gotten the divorce signed and the ink dry and they're lining up their next marriage. And that is, in his mind, is a huge problem.
Well, and I work divorces. Not a ton of them because I don't really go out there seeking the opportunity to work divorces. But I tell my clients when I am talking to them that the most important person in the divorce is the kids. Mm-hmm. And, take care of the kids, make sure you do that right. My youngest is in high school and my oldest is in college. So making sure you go to football practice and all that stuff, and dad's donuts with dad and all that is not as big a deal with us, but It is. It's the most important person in the divorce is the kid, and make sure that they're taken care of and that they're the highest priority in it.
That you have to. And if you think that that's not your highest priority, then get ready for the fact that you're probably in for divorce number 2 sooner rather than later.
And I think that you can fracture those relationships with your kids easily, or you know what, you can do it right and you can make them stronger. And, just don't get the kids in the middle of stuff, So anyway, but that's not what we're here for. That's your podcast. So, but
it does deal a little bit with what you're going through. So now you get to go back and listen to some.
Yeah, I will. I will at some point.
You know what? Partnerships, a lot of times they can end in a weird divorce. We know bands break up. We know couples break up. We know partners break up. I mean, it's just part of dealing with life. We're gonna shift gears here pretty quickly and bring in a partnership from Pod Clubhouse. But before I do, anything else you want to bring up that happened in the last week since you and I chatted?
There is a lot going on in the world, but the biggest thing I think I'm excited about, Alan, is turning on baseball, hockey, basketball games and seeing full crowds.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
It is really, really great coming out of this COVID stuff and seeing things returning to normal, seeing less and less masks, seeing more and more crowds. It's pretty exciting.
More and more normalcy. And I think that's a good thing considering, again, we don't want to bring it down, but there was a report out that came out from the head of some child psychologist group that said about 30% of teens now have fears and anxieties that are leading them to things like drug abuse, thoughts of suicide. It's a huge spike, and you got to get back to normal. You got to give them a sense of breathing and being back on their own 2 feet, and life goes on. Sometimes we forget. You and I have been around for 5 decades now. 5 centuries. We've been around for 5 decades, and we have more perspective. When you're only like 14, 12, 13, you don't have a whole lot of perspective. All you know is this is a horrible, horrible time to be alive, and that can fill a kid who's already going through weirdness and changes with some strange ideas of what the future holds. So, yeah, we need more normalcy, and I'm glad to see it. You know what? We're going to go, speaking of normalcy, we're going to go to completely abnormal because we're going to bring in a couple of folks now from a crazy, fun clubhouse. It's called Pod Clubhouse. Folks, I want you to put your hands together for the couple that we got interviewed by last year. They're coming on the stage right now. Caroline Daley and Michael Caputo. Welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Hey, you guys. How are you guys?
We're great.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Yay.
we're like, we decided to bring on a happy couple. I mean, I know you guys aren't married, but you are podcast partners. And we thought, hey, why not bring you on?
I'm a a divorced dad lawyer from New York City who moved to the country. I feel seen in this first 10 minutes of the Wilder Ride.
I might have texted Mike and was like, they're telling your story.
No! I said, is my name Brad Stevens? I might be Brad Stevens.
We've changed it to protect the innocent.
I didn't know.
Oh my gosh.
No. My bingo card of my life just got checked off literally in 7 minutes.
Win.
I win.
Hey, when you come on the Wilder Ride, man, we look to talk to you.
Maybe they actually scoured the social media and they like deep dived on you, Mike. So they found.
We did tell you that Walt's a detective, right? He's a private eye.
And also, Mike, you've been eating too many frozen egg rolls at night. Stop doing that. You've been in your garbage.
You're divorced. I know how that goes.
Your doctor knows you've been lying to him.
Yeah. My diet looks suspiciously like it did when it was in college. It's gone full circle.
Funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let's go through specific introductions. We'll do ladies first. Caroline Daley, tell us a little bit about your background. What is it you do by day versus being the podcaster by night?
Oh gosh, what don't I do by day is a much shorter list. Well, I am a teacher, educator. I'm a special needs advocate. I have 3 special needs kids of my own, and so I'm momming it up tons of time and do a lot of podcasting. I think we did 3 podcasts this weekend. You guys are number 4 in the last couple of days here. And we're putting out stuff on the regular and just always looking for new opportunities, ways to socialize with others in appropriate ways.
Excellent. Mike, you sort of let on about some of your background as an attorney, but the law field is obviously wide and deep depending on where you are and what you're doing. But give us a quick background of who you are by day and what you do in terms of podcasting by night.
Sure. So I'm a corporate lawyer, contracts. If my clients wind up in courtrooms, I've done something very bad, and I have failed spectacularly at my job. So, and then I'm a dad, and then I'm also a podcaster. Like Caroline said, it's one of those three things that's usually I'm in front of some computer almost, I don't know, 18 hours a day. It feels like some days, doing one thing or another. But actually, Pod Clubhouse is what we're doing now, but starting like in 2011, I actually started like my first TV review site because of Lost. Actually, I got involved in some fandom community groups, and I started a website where I was going to write my own TV recaps of shows called On My DVR, and I loved it. I finally I always wanted to write, and I always wanted to talk about television, so it was kind of like a dream come true. And then I started Pop Culture Review, which was the same thing, but just kind of a larger scope. It wasn't limited to TV, and then so that technically I still do, but I don't do it too much anymore.
Okay, so you mentioned Lost.
Yes.
What the hell?
We're big losties up in here.
Big losties. I never left a hatch. I'm still pushing the button every 108 seconds. I never left.
I feel like that's the story of my life. I feel like there's just like a voiceover like, push the button, Caroline. It's like, I have to go push the button.
Yeah. Where button is code for editing.
Yeah, there you go.
It's like, Caroline, we have to publish this today. Could you edit it? It's only an hour and 56 minutes.
I'm like, give me an hour and 56 minutes. I'll get it right back to you.
Yeah. Just remember 4, 8, 15, 16.
That's it.
Well, I think Lost was such an interesting show, and I can see why you got hooked on that for a podcast. I mean, I think J.J. Abrams catches a lot of flack, but I think that show was a really big view into how brilliant he can be.
Yeah, but my thing with Lost is I think he didn't think it was going to catch on and last as long as it did, and then he didn't really know how to end it. At least it didn't feel like that to me.
Well, and he left somewhere in the middle of it, too.
Yeah, I mean, Bad Robot stayed on as the production company the entire run, but he was pretty much gone from it early on. Before the end of season 1, he was gone, and then they handed it off to Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse, and those two really ran the show for the next couple of years. Now, I'm one of those people who I don't hate the finale, the Lost finale, and I know a lot of people do, maybe even most people do.
I'm glad you guys are on Zoom so you can see your little faces be like, brrr.
But awesome. I don't know. I was one of those people who was like, no, you have to watch it from this point of view, though, which I get. No one wants to be told how to watch television or be instructed like, here's the manual you need in order to watch this show and enjoy it, kind of thing. But I mean, I think you look at seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Lost. I think they changed television.
Oh yeah,
there are a couple of shows couple of shows that changed, especially how serialized television was told and the things you could do and the things that people never thought to do in the history of television. And I think Lost is one of those shows that showed us it could be different.
Yeah, so. Lost, I think, dovetailed on the success of like 24 in terms of having some kind of the cliffhangers coming back, but instead of it being a techno thriller, more of a where am I lost, sort of a fantasy island meets Twilight Zone.
That's a good description.
Yeah, and with Fantasy Island coming back is like a summer special this year that's super timely.
Alan's actually a secret producer on the show. He's just weaving that in.
You know what? If I were,
it would not be a secret.
Yeah, my God,
you would know about it.
Walt, the plane.
There are certain things. We're called the Wilder Eye because we dive into Gene Wilder movies, and one of the things that I just think was one of the biggest abominations in cinema is when Tim Burton tried to redo Willy Wonka, calling it Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I think in this case, you're looking at the same kind of an abomination. If you don't have a Ricardo Montalban, I don't know how you have a Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, for
Silence
sure.
There. We're all like, what about Ricardo? We hadn't considered the lack of Ricardo.
What would Fantasy Island have been? Fantasy Island with Ricardo Montalban.
This is a weird road we're getting down, but I was just talking about him today, and his influence on Star Trek because of Wrath of Khan. And I was like, if it weren't for him and it weren't for Khan, Star Trek may have died right there at the end of that first movie. So
if not for him, if not for his vest and his pec muscles, I think the Star Trek would have died.
Actual pec. A lot of people like that
pecs,
was that was makeup. No,
ones.
it was not.
No.
Yes, those were not molded.
It was rich Corinthian leather.
Yes, that's so sassy.
Yeah, his chest saved Star Trek. I mean, so there you go.
Well, I mean, his acting, the story, everything about Star Trek 2 saved that franchise. That is still for classic Trek fans of the original cast. I have not met anybody who goes, "Oh no, you just don't understand. 5 is really the best." No, it's not. 6, no. 2 of all the classic Trek cast, 2 is the standalone best movie.
I think 4 is the best, but that's fine.
No, but you can't have 4 without 2 and 3. That really is.
No. 2. I agree. 2 objectively is the best. 4 is my favorite. 4 was my Trek though. It was the one I saw in the theaters.
Yeah,
I was 8. It was just it all kind of hit at the right time.
No,
I went back in time after I started.
That's so crazy.
At the Whales, and then came back in
Your
time.
4 was when you were 8. The very first time I saw a movie by myself, because my mom and dad, way back when there was this thing called the VCR, my dad got the Star Trek, the motion picture, and we watched it, and they had such a horrible time. My mom said, I am never going to watch another Star Trek movie. And so when 2 came out, she said, you know what? I'll drop you and your brother off at the mall in the movie theater. I'll go shopping and pick you up. So that was the first movie my brother and I got to see by ourselves in a movie theater. I think I was 11 years old because it came out, 82, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So I was 11 years old, and I was like, this is the greatest movie I have ever seen. So it had an impact on me because I was young. But no, I think 2, 3, and 4, that really is the Star Trek trilogy. 1, I appreciate it now as an adult for what it was trying to do. 5, an abomination, should have never been made. 6, I do like because it makes up for 5.
Sure, and you have Klingons quoting Shakespeare. And
how do you go wrong?
How do you go wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've just put some great things together. 2 great tastes that taste great together for sure. So,
all right.
Well, I kind of got us off track there, going down the Lost to
Fantasy Island, which brought us to Ricardo Montalban.
Oh my God.
This is going to be a different episode, as you can tell. These two are just as hard to contain as Walt and I. Well, let's try to pull it back a little bit for a second. The two of you are part of a show called Pod Clubhouse. Let me ask this. How did the two of you, in your podcasting backgrounds, how did you kind of cross paths and come into being with what we call the Pod Clubhouse?
So Mike and I were a part of a radio show, and Mike was an ongoing host and I was a guest. And we kind of just clicked. Like every time when I would come on the air, there's usually would be 4 hosts and it would end up being just Mike and I talking and everyone else just like sitting back. And we were just like laughing back and forth with each other for like 20, 30 minutes. And then everyone would be like, well, I guess the show's over. So we were kind of like, I feel kind of bad. Like no one else gets to talk. So, we talked to each other and we had worked with some other people who had sort of more ideas about like squelching other podcasts. And my whole thing was like, I feel super uncomfortable with that. I don't want to put any other podcasts down. I would rather us work together with podcasts or gather other hosts and bring them into the fold than try to like beat other podcasts. Like that just wasn't my vibe. So I had talked to Mike and he has a great background, really, really great with, working kind of behind the scenes with all of the contacts with getting interviews and sort of being in the know production wise. He seems to always know when the next show is going to come out. So I always have an opinion and I'm super all inclusive. Like I said, I have this special needs background. So for me, I'm like, everyone's invited all the time. Everyone come over. So I always want everyone to be part of the show. And Mike was on board for that. So
Walt, how many times have you and I talked? Because with my background in radio and especially in news talk, that in radio, and I think that's where maybe that was coming from, Caroline, is everyone wants to own the market share. They don't want anyone else having anyone listening to them. It has to be all me. Bring it all here. It's ours. And I see the exact opposite in the podcast world, or maybe it's just the people we hang out with. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll come on your show. You come on my show. I'm gonna help support your show. You help support my. It's all very cooperative. I think because everyone's got sort of like their own style, their own niche. We're not competing for market share.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, rising tide, lift all boats really was like, that was the idea that I really latched onto when Caroline pitched it and said, we could do something here. We could do something collaborative and, make a mark for ourselves and be helpful to the community also, the podcast community and do something interesting and bring a fresh voice, because you see like podcast hosts like we're coming on your show and you see that, but we felt like you didn't see it enough. So one of our missions was definitely to try and bring, voice A together with voice B, and something interesting is going to happen. It may not be great, but it'll be there. And, but I think most times it works out really interesting. I think all these different points of views that don't usually speak to each other, we throw them together. I don't know. I find like we get really interesting conversations that we wouldn't get otherwise. So.
Well, and I think when you put podcasters together like that, we all like to talk. We all feel like we've got a well-constructed worldview, whether it be right or wrong. And so you can really have some great either, nose-to-nose sparring, or you can have very complimentary conversations. I mean, just like the tail off we did into Star Trek. I mean, those are awesome conversations that just naturally come as a result of, people's life interest. And when you put all those together, it's going to be fun to listen to.
Right. You can't plan the rabbit trail. You just go down them.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to share my wreath of con, my Christmas wreath of all con faces that I've made.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I can't wait to show you. I'll send it in DM.
Okay. So it's like you got like the Madeline con, you've got the Genghis con, you've got Wrath of con.
just con.
Oh, just con. Okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
We run the gamut here, man.
When you press a button on the wreath, it just screams con. But two like Christmas jingles though.
Yeah.
Con.
Does it shake a little bit? Just
yeah, it has that anger from within.
And then it's got like the reverb echo, and it slowly pulls away from the planet.
Yeah,
that
totally.
is amazing.
And then randomly it says, "I always have and will be your friend" at the end. Randomly, real fucking random. Like, yeah.
We just don't know who it's going to say that to.
Yeah,
there she is.
Hopefully, the right guest.
Exactly.
There she is, not so wounded as we were led
mistletoe.
to believe.
Oh my goodness.
So much the better. Let's go ahead. And so you decided you wanted to create a show that was much more positive and uplifting, and you wanted to spotlight other podcasts, podcasters, other shows. How'd you come across the name Pod Clubhouse?
Oh gosh. So I wanted this like membership feel. Like you could come and go from the clubhouse. Like I tease Mike all the time. Like we've got a stocked bar and tons of snacks, and anybody can stop over anytime and just chat with us, about anything. And you had mentioned bean dip, and I was kind of laughing to myself because, we're in Texas. So I was like, oh no, man, we got queso going on over here. We got barbecue and queso and good stuff going on in the clubhouse. And we just wanted that feel of being able to come and go, but that you're always a part of the club.
Right. And yeah, a really place just to kind of hang out. And if you have something to say, maybe it's not your bag. Maybe you have a music podcast, but you're really hot on this movie or this TV show. You want to come talk about it? Well, we'll give you a voice. We'll give you a platform. Come talk about it. We're always up for having those kind of conversations, and while we're playing checkers or whatever. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that Alan and I have also talked about a lot is in the podcast world, you don't have the corporate filters. So you don't have someone in the ivory tower going, no, that's a bad idea for a show. But you have,
let's talk about a movie 1 minute at a time.
Yes, exactly. You have a couple of guys who are Gene Wilder fans who are like, let's really, really break the movie down. Let's excruciatingly talk about this. And there's nobody to say no. You just put it together, you put it out there, and if people like it, they listen. If they don't, they move on to something else. And I think that is something that's really cool about the podcasting world. Have y'all, found that to be, for most of your guests, really passion driven, or are you finding people who really kind of want to make stars of themselves? What are you seeing in your guests?
Oh gosh, I think we attract the collaborators. I think that if you're coming to the clubhouse, you probably have an idea in mind. Like Mike says, maybe you have a music podcast and you talk about that 7 days a week, but you saw this movie and you really want to talk about it, but you don't have anyone to talk to. And so you can kind of DM us and we're like, hey, let me see who else is interested in that movie. And we've got a connection around and we'll say, like, is anyone interested in this? You guys have been on the receiving end of that. And then people will pop up and say, yeah, I want to talk about that. And we end up like 3 or 4 different people from different podcasts. And, you know, it's a great outlet. People feel like they can say what they want to say and then go back to their regularly scheduled program with their own people. But they can kind of, you know, have this moment where they get to step out of their normal topics.
Yeah, I mean, a great example recently was we got screeners. So one of the things, because of my writing blogs that I've done for 10 years in various outlets, I get access to a lot of screeners, and that's how we get stuff ahead of, you know, other people for shows that we cover. And Paramount Plus was coming out with From the Cradle to Stage. It's a 6-episode series based on the book by Dave Grohl and his mother, looking at rock stars and their moms, talking about, you know, like Tom Morello and his mother, how he was as a kid through his like fame. But it's not just the rock star; it's it's the mothers involved too in the conversation. So we were like, we should cover this, you know, do one of our Love It or Leave It episodes. So we don't cover every single episode; we just talk about the show generally. You know, so we're friends with the Surely You Can't Be Serious guys, and they talk about music a lot on their podcast. Paul has a friend who's a music writer; he's a freelance music writer. Neither of them cover shows, so it was a great idea. It was like, well, let's bring them together and talk about this like rock show, you know. So it was finding a right tool for a right fit and kind of bringing together, again, voices that wouldn't have found each other otherwise to come talk about it.
Yeah, and in that case, like the one host, Eric, like he is a columnist for a Dallas newspaper, so he doesn't do podcasting, but boy, did he have opinions. And
Right.
So he was like jumping right on, and he knew everything. And I was like, Mary Morello was like the coolest mom I've ever met in my life. Like, she is so cool. And all of the moms on there were so amazing. And it was just a way to like bring in something different that people weren't even talking about, because I haven't seen this show being given a lot of highlights yet. So I'm glad we got a chance to bring in some different voices too.
Yeah. So
All right, well, let's chat for a second then about how it's grown, because, you know, you had this idea of Pod Clubhouse, a place where you could come together and bring other podcasters in or bring other folks in, maybe not even necessarily podcasters, but people who just have an opinion on things that want to get on and chat. It's definitely more than just one show.
Yes.
yes.
True
Yes.
that. Yeah. I mean, at this point, we do our, interview with a podcast, which is how we met you guys. And that's been a huge favorite of ours, because we get a chance to meet so many different people. And we explain it every time they come on. Please just advertise your own show. This is the time to highlight your background and everything you do. And I think for Mike and I, it's so fun because we just get to joke and laugh and listen to other people's ideas and be able to lift them up. Sometimes, we walk away and we're like, wow, that's a wild idea. I would have never thought of that, and so fascinating. We have one coming out this week, Great American Scream. These guys were amazing. They like talk about spooky places around America and that type of stuff. I mean, really cool and different. And I was happy to get a chance to share them with other people. So what are the ones we do, Mike? We do so many.
Well, I mean, just on IWAP, that was when we started, and Caroline and Paul and I, we all sat down. The interview with the podcast was really the foundation show. That was kind of the core idea, because if we were going to create this stable of collaboration and collaborators, that's such a funny word. Come on, collaborators. But, if we were going to create that, like, we had to start talking to podcasts. So
secretly we were auditioning friends.
Yeah. There's a conversation that Caroline and I have on almost every single IWAP. All right, do we tell them that maybe we want them to come back or not?
He's like, do the invitation, ask them. At least the last time I said it a little early, and he's like, you're getting the invitation really early in the show. And I was like, but I like them. I'm just going to ask them.
She's
I jumped the gun. I didn't play hard to get at all.
We're totally Caesar in the Gladiator, in the Coliseum, putting our thumbs up or thumbs down secretly behind our back. Because you get a feel for people, and and just about everyone we've ever talked to, really, I think we've liked. I'm hard pressed to come away from an interview that we did where it was like, I'm never going to talk to those people again ever.
Because it's all like everyone's their own individual jigsaw piece, and maybe they don't match our puzzle, but that's okay, because we have other people in the stable of friends that we can say, you know what, they would get along really well with that one over there. So when we're going to do the next one, let's make sure they're co-hosting together. Yeah. So it's not really just about fitting with Mike and I. It's really, where can we match you up with other people with your same rhythm?
Caroline called it. She came up with an idea when I was trying to write a post. She said, well, it's like speed dating. Like
it basically is.
We're kind of speed dating listeners to podcasts. And And we've kind of really embraced that. That's really how we treat it. We're speed dating them. They're speed dating us. The listeners are going to make a choice when they go and hear it, if it's something that maybe they want to talk to. I mean, you guys are on Twitter. How many times a day do you see a tweet retweeted 8,000 times looking for podcast recommendations?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just a way for people to actually get to hear the voices and decide, like, you know what, after that 30-minute little thing, those voices are super soothing, or they're like, holy cow, that was grating, I'm out of here. Whatever. Or we'll just be so incredibly silly, we'll end up like, taking over the whole show. Any which way. Mike, the favorite one we're doing right now is the 52 Weeks of Christmas that you and I are doing.
Yeah, so most of our podcasts end up being television recap series. So they run for a certain amount of time and then they're done, or we have to wait for a new season to come out. But this one was an idea born out of the pandemic and just having a lack of hope. Right after Christmas, I came to Caroline and I said, I'm not ready to be done with Christmas. We have to do something. And I said, what if we do 52
I was like,
weeks?
Get it together, man.
And she slapped me. She slapped me through the phone and said, shut up, you sound idiot. So I was like, what if we do 52 weeks of Christmas? If we started on X date, we'll be done next Christmas of 2021. So that's what we did. We just kind of put it together real fast. And so every week we're watching a Christmas movie or a TV special and we're talking about it. We're talking about whether or not it even counts as a Christmas movie. If it's a great Christmas movie, what is a great Christmas movie? And kind of examining movies that way. And it gave us a movie podcast, which we didn't have. And it's also letting us talk about Christmas in the middle of June, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know. Do you guys know it was just like 6 months to Christmas Eve, just like 4 days ago?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yes. I was like, I kept saying to people in my family, I'm like, you guys, if I only buy like one present each week from here on out, like that's only 26 presents. I do not have enough time. Like I have to get my shit together.
Hey, you know what? The fact that 2021 is going by so much faster is a great sign.
I know. It's a little creepy though, no? Like 4th of July is this weekend.
Yes, it is.
Crazy town.
At least at the time of we're recording, it'll probably come out, this episode will come out just after. But yeah, we're getting ready to. And you know what? Celebrations are back on. At least I don't know where you are, but I know in our state, we're open. We're having, like, our city is, in fact, they even said, we took all the money we had allocated to fireworks last year, plus what we allocated this year. We're going to have the biggest fireworks display ever. I'm watching
exploding Georgia.
Nonprofit groups like United Way or Advocates for Children or, other organizations that are there to help with social, issues and things like that are having the biggest turnouts. Not necessarily because people are suddenly got this spirit of giving. They just want to get out. They're just going to go to any event. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, we actually... Paul just this weekend went to the first film fest that was coming back to real life fair where you could go live in person. And he did a lot of great interviews. You guys, I told the story about how I'm such a scare baby about good old Gage on Pet Cemetery. And I jump off the middle of the bed because I'm scared he's going to slice my freaking ankles off.
Your Achilles tendon?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? So Paul goes and finds the guy who plays Gage at the horror place, pays the man money to sign a picture that says, I want to play with you next, Caroline, and gives you this picture. And I'm I burst into tears. He gives it to me. I'm like, I'm scared of that. and I just looked at him and I go, now he knows my name. No. So freaking scared of that guy. So yeah, horror fests are back. And they were all over the place. He met the guy from Poltergeist, the son, the boy, young boy.
That is really,
it also may have been Paul's last horror Comic-Con that
I also might have cried.
She may have also prevented him from ever going back to one of them again.
That picture scared me. He knows my name, you guys.
Oh, it was terrifying. I don't have the same fear, and I saw it. I was like, that is creepy as hell.
All right, well,
scared.
I got to insert this because you're talking about 52 weeks of Christmas. You're trying to watch a Christmas movie a week. Is it a unanimous? Because we may have to just end the podcast right now if you were to go against what I'm about to say. But Die Hard is maybe one of the best Christmas movies ever.
We haven't gotten to it yet, but it's on our list.
It better be.
It's fair to leave it as we'll let you know.
And if you need guests, I'm only suggesting sure. I'd be happy to.
I think we could make a good case for that one.
I like that.
We might have. Yeah, we have to have you on. It's. I can say I keep a whole spreadsheet because we have a Jingle Bell rating that we do out of 10 Jingle Bells. What we rate each movie.
And he's very serious about the spreadsheet.
I take it very seriously, and so I pull up my whole spreadsheet. And every episode, you hear me clicking and this I'm like updating
And I'm like,
notes and
while Mike is looking through the spreadsheet, everyone be thinking about like we go on to other things because he's looking through his like numbers like an accountant.
Look, they're all kind of Christmas movies, and I appreciate the traditional ones. I appreciate the maudlin ones. I appreciate the Hallmark ones. But you got to have one for the diehard. And my kids know every Christmas it's on our watch list. It must be watched every Christmas.
I mean, I can say without being too spoilery, it'll be cold weather, I think, by the time we may see Die Hard come up.
Good, it should be
on our
closer to Christmas.
Yeah, so there was some thumbs on the scale when I was putting the list together. Like we did It's a Wonderful Life first. It felt only right to start with that.
Yeah,
sure.
Caroline's favorite Christmas movie, I believe, is...
God, you're just saying stuff, huh?
Well, I think it is Christmas Vacation.
Christmas Vacation is a fave, that's for sure. Yes,
that also may be one that comes up in like a special
Walt,
slot.
point down.
I love that. I love that movie.
We were forced to do a 7-part series of that one on our Patreon show. The coolest part is we got Beverly D'Angelo to join us for a 1-hour interview, but it wasn't my favorite. I still enjoyed breaking it down, but it's Walt. Walt can't get enough of Christmas Vacation.
That's awesome. My son has the jersey with Griswold on the back, and I steal it on the regs.
That is awesome.
When
I think it's a funny movie too, because I mean, obviously it's a comedy, so it should be funny, but
should be.
I think for those of us who don't always get that warm fuzzy feeling about the holidays, it kind of does kick you into the holiday spirit a little bit more.
We actually talk about that on the podcast, about that the holidays bring all kinds of emotions, including loneliness and depression and anxiety and all this stuff. Like, we actually talk kind of a lot because there's quite a few different characters in these different shows that, you know, they're trying to do their best to show the different emotions that Christmas brings. It's not all good.
All right, gotta ask.
I broke down talking about Jack Frost just last weekend.
He might have cried.
I might have cried twice talking
Jack
about
Frost.
stupid Michael Keaton Jack Frost movie. There you go.
But you guys can appreciate it. It was a dad-son story.
Oh,
and it was
sure.
It was pulling at his heart, and I didn't
movies
laugh
change when you have kids, or when you have a divorce, or when you have a parent die. I know, like for me, I never gave Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as much weight as I do now, because when my dad passed away and I went and rewatched it, I was like, it's a father-son movie, and I can't watch this with my dad anymore. And it made such an emotional impact.
Yeah.
So
Junior.
Well, don't do that, Mike. That's terrible. He's just saying he's all emotional.
I didn't tell him anything. I only needed 5 minutes.
Well, one of the movies I'm going to talk about in the "What Are You Watching" segment, it totally caught me off guard. When the mother in the movie passed away, and it just, in the past it would have been like, oh, that's sad, but after losing my mom in a similar way, it hits you. It hits you, especially when it's done well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it'll just rip your heart out.
Well, there's all kinds of small stuff. So we did A Christmas Carol, and we have actually done several different versions.
Yeah, I
would
would say which version.
We did several. We've actually done several, but the most recent one we did was the 1951 most traditional version, and it's kind of rough to get through because it's got some super British accents.
It's very old-timey British.
Yes, but you're talking about different points of your life when you see things. So my eldest daughter is deafblind. She uses a cane. Tiny Tim in this particular one has this special little hook that he puts his cane, and my little heart was like, yes, that's exactly what it's like. You have a special little hook. And I felt like this is so perfect. Like, it's just interesting how you bring your own stuff throughout your life,
Because every other telling has Tiny Tim
puts it in the corner.
Just has his cane in the corner. That's like a staple of all the tellings, in this one, like, address that thing, and it hit you. Yeah,
I felt so happy. I was like, it had a hook.
It's great to have so many versions of a classic tale. I know for me, The Muppets is probably one of my favorite ones to watch because of my kids. And then the one with George C. Scott is always fantastic. But then if you go back and watch the Bill Murray telling of Scrooge, I mean, that is awesome.
Yep.
So what was your feeling on that one?
Ooh, on Scrooged or just on? Oh, well, we laughed a lot. We did laugh, but I think Mike, what did we wind up with? It wasn't.
Oh, are you asking me to pull up my spreadsheet?
Oh,
Do I get to open it up? Oh shit! Is this happening? No, I'm not gonna.
This is the wild ride. We don't do data.
We don't do facts.
Listen, guys, I gotta tell you, getting your email about the format of the show, I was like, oh shit, I'm not gonna be. They're gonna ask me questions for an hour. I don't have to do any prep.
Like you were seriously like,
Yes.
you were like, there's a format. I was like,
but it's a format that,
down.
and I don't have
There's
to worry
an
about
agenda. I was like,
Listen,
stop. Outlines, Roman numerals. No.
Oh, I heard it. The email
Agendas
came
and
back.
meetings, yeah, nothing gets my nipples harder than a
I would
good
say that
agenda.
his email came back. It was moist. That's all I can tell you.
Oh yeah. For
I mean,
sure.
I send that love right
That's
through.
Mike for
Well,
you.
Right
every
through
time
All
I
right,
see
the
that
so
email, I'm
because
like,
he's trying to obfuscate and dodge the question.
See,
I
Walt,
still
me and
remember
you,
where
we're like
was
the same.
Scrooged in your poll?
So Scrooge. So I was a big fan of Scrooge growing up, and so it was an interesting thing going back because I hadn't watched it probably in 15 years, at least 20 years, maybe. It was really mean. It's a really mean telling of the story that I see why I laughed as much as I did in 1988, in 1989 when I saw it. I was at like that right age where all those kinds of jokes where she Carol Kane is beating the snot out of him. I remember howling, and I still found it funny. I was like, man, this went on for a really long time though.
Yeah.
Like, it was anyway. So it was a little too dark for me for a Christmas movie. So
we couldn't figure out the girlfriend storyline either. We were like, why was she even in it? Like that was so weird.
The Muppet one was our favorite, I think.
Oh,
I
by
think for
far.
both of us, like by heads and tails. Yeah,
The Muppet one.
Yeah.
How do you beat Michael Caine in the middle of that? And it's so good.
And Kermit and Piggy, come on.
Yeah.
It was adorable.
Yeah.
I found a spot overlooking the river for Tiny Tim.
Don't start that part. He'll cry. I know. Don't. It's not funny. That's the saddest part.
One more question on the Christmas podcast before we get to some of the other ones. Where does Love Actually fit? Have you either watched it or is it a Christmas movie for you?
It may be on the list. It may be on the list, but we still have 26 weeks left, so we'll have to see if it comes up.
So Die Hard and Love Actually should be well into December.
Okay, excellent.
I can only tell you,
the Wilder Ride
Love
has
Actually
spoken.
is my wife's and I favorite Christmas movie to watch together as a couple. She doesn't dig the Die Hard thing. She's like, I'm not watching people killing each other for Christmas. I'm like, okay, it's still a Christmas movie, but Love Actually.
Christmas more than.
I know they kill
Hey,
each other.
the sweatshirt says ho ho ho. How much more Christmassy do you need?
Yeah, and he got a present. And now he has a gun too.
And now have a gun.
That's right.
Yeah,
but no, seriously, Love Actually. I know a lot of movies try to follow that format. I know people will say, well, it's still kind of schmaltzy. It's still my all-time favorite, not just that rom-com, but as far as a holiday movie that somehow works at every level, it's one that we watch every year.
I'm a huge fan of Love Actually. I'm a huge fan of Die Hard, and I celebrate both of them as Christmas movies. So
I expect an invite.
I'll
bring the cocoa.
Both of those. I'm like, yeah, but Hugh Grant shakes his tushy. Like, there's a whole thing there.
Tushy?
Yes,
there's
to the Pointer Sisters.
Yeah, there are Christmas lobsters in the school play because they've run out of manger parts. They have Christmas lobsters. It's
Emma Thompson says there were lobsters.
I'm doing lobster claws.
I guess I'm glad I haven't seen this.
You've never seen Love Actually?
Living the same life.
How have you been my
If I have,
podcast?
it's been years.
You know what? I'm going to have to just shoot you. You just say we're done. I need a new partner.
Jeez, Walt, that was extreme.
Walt is having the worst day ever.
I'm like, how have you been in my partner for 4 years? And you're like, I haven't seen Love Actually. Like, well, okay, whatever.
There was some other lame movie that you mentioned a while back.
You saw Waterworld last week. I don't want to hear it.
Wow, Waterworld.
That is not a Christmas movie.
Not
a Christmas movie, but I like Waterworld too.
The fans voted for Waterworld.
So
I
you lost the bet,
man. That's really funny. They turn urine into drinking water. I don't know where you went wrong on that one.
Hey, anytime you can retell Road Warrior, I'm okay.
Mike's got a wacky bar for movies. He's like, is there urine? Do they change it into water?
They make it potable?
Really?
Is it potable?
That's the thing. Like, normally in my wheelhouse, right?
Right.
I'll take potables for 1,000.
Who doesn't like yellow golden showers?
Everyone understands that the best quote from a Dodgeball.
Are you into sports? I am. So wait, okay.
Oh my
So you
gosh.
have a section on your website. We've been talking about it, movie podcast, and there's only just this one, 52 weeks of Christmas.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you planning to expand your movie podcast after this year of looking at Christmas movies?
About every 10 to 12 days, I email or text or call Paul and Caroline, and I say to them, can we please launch a regular movie review podcast? Please. We need one, please. So it's definitely something I want to do because I think it's just an area where, again, it just gives multiple people a voice to kind of chime in and talk.
Excellent.
So it's definitely something that we're looking to do. Same for a music show. We're looking at, I really want like a regular music show of some sort. So yes, yeah, that's a yes for me. That's a yes for me, Alan.
Okay.
I would love that.
Well, I don't think you're going to find too many places where people are able to have very passionate, friendly conversations than about music and movies. The other things you start getting too passionate and too nasty about would be politics and sports
And religion.
And religion.
Yeah.
So stay away from
Yeah.
those three. Do the music and movies.
Yeah, you can have some great
Yeah.
debates on that. Well,
Yeah.
your TV podcast, it looks like that's pretty much more established. You're looking at either shows or episodes, and you're having folks add to that. So that is a pretty extensive list of shows that dive into like things from Lovecraft Country to Hollywood to Avenue 5. So that seems to be a pretty established subcategory of podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, that was all of our backgrounds. I mean, I'll let Caroline, because she really has the podcast background in TV, but all three of us, I think, came from covering TV in some form or fashion. So
Yeah. So we started with The Leftovers a long time ago. Lindelof train from Lost. We followed him over to The Leftovers on HBO. And that really spoke to us. It really spoke to my heart a whole lot about like, what if your life just changes in a second, right? Everything's different. All the thoughts and all the dreams, all the paths you thought you were going to follow aren't going to be. And for me, I had twins at 23 weeks. And so for me, path just went right off the rails. And so that show, there was just something about it, about people dealing with that sudden change in life. And so we really started talking to other people about that. And it got us much more into different TV shows that had some not controversy, but like, really welled up some emotion, made you really think about things. Mike and I are doing one right now that I'm super fascinated with. And it's called Kevin Can F Himself, which I know is kind of dramatic sounding, but the thing is that it's like two shows in one. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but they shoot it in a multicam sitcom setting. And then when the wife leaves the room, it turns into a single cam drama. And so it's essentially, think The Honeymooners, think you see Ralph and Norton laughing and joking, and you watch Alice leave the room. And when she leaves, life becomes dingier, darker, completely different from her POV of having to deal with these guys and their antics. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's really turning sitcoms that we all know for the last 40 years and have watched as kids and stuff really on its head. And the big tagline that I loved was, we're asking the question, who and what we're laughing at all these years. And for the most part, it turns out it's women, the wives typically, and, poking fun at anybody who they feel is less than, right? So there's all kinds of jokes and there are all the isms, if you will. So it's fascinating to do this show and sort of dissect it and talk about the different parts. And we, I think, have done a good job, Mike, of pointing out that this isn't a gender show. Within any relationship, one person can be the more responsible one and the other one can have to be picking up the pieces. And it doesn't really matter. Could be guy or girl, could be same sex. It doesn't matter. But there's always going to be one who's the Kevin who can go F himself and one who's the Allison who's like constantly trying to pick up the pieces behind what someone else did without any thought. And I mean, I think it's been a fascinating conversation. We have had a lot of feedback from people on this. We've been going up the charts really fast on that one because I think it's very polarizing. You either are super into it or you hate it. And we've decided if you hate it, you might just be a Kevin.
Right. In the same way, like Watchmen started a conversation about racism in this country and actually Lovecraft Country, and talking about like alerting people to like the Tulsa massacre and it was using this fictional show to talk about real world things. Kevin Can F Himself is serving that same purpose because we're running a Facebook group for the show, Kevin Can F Himself fans. And we're already having people come in and be like, this show has taken my life. Like, this is the life I'm living. Like, I thought I could be a sitcom wife. I thought like that would be okay, but it's turned into this abusive relationship. Because what is happening in the show, I think people can relate to. And we're seeing people also who are like, this show is stupid. That's not realistic. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to look at it and say, well, maybe you're a Kevin. Like, if you're upset by what you're saying here, you might be a Kevin. And, it really
and we both admitted that at points of our own relationships, we've been the Allison who have been getting dumped on, and we've been the Kevin who have been thoughtless and careless and done something that, we didn't mean the consequences, but it happened. And so, I think it's a cool conversation. And for the most part, if you look down our list of shows, we shy away from comedies because they tend to be rough to talk about. Honestly, it's harder to delve into the meaning behind things or anything. And so we tend to stick to more drama. And this one, with having this, it's like 22-minute sitcom and 22-minute drama mixed together. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. That's a big new project. And I think the other big project that we're hot on right now is we launched we're calling it Press Pass Podcast, basically covering live events, cons, with the world opening back up again. We're expecting to see coverage. We're expecting to be going back to cons and conventions. So we started with ATX. Paul was at the Houston Horror Convention. Hopefully San Diego is coming up in July. I actually just got my Press Pass approvals for that, so there'll be coverage for that. So
I know we've got Dragon Con here in Atlanta.
Dragon Con is...
It's exciting to have it back.
One of the major cons that I've not made it to yet that I want to, for sure.
It's massive, too. It's grown so big until last year. Obviously, it's one of the biggest ones that I know.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe San Diego and Comic-Con, it's huge here in the Southeast.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think San Diego, New York's Comic-Con, and then I think Dragon Con are probably like the two really massive ones that people flock to. So it's on my list of places to get to with the world opening up again. So
it is funny, though. I hear a lot of people say, I've been to all these cons, but I've never been to Dragon Con. That seems to be the one that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. I mean, you guys may know because you're closer to it, but it started in like a more niche way. It wasn't like a general pop culture convention originally, right? Didn't it have a more narrow focus when it first launched?
I believe when it first, honestly, it was more like the role play gamers and people who did a lot of what do you call it? What was it? The live, like the LARP stuff, live action role play. And it was comic books, it was LARP, it was sort of, I don't want to call it niche, but it wasn't like we're going to launch a bunch of movie trailers and stuff here. We're going to have everybody dress up like their favorite heroes. It just sort of evolved. I remember when it first started, there was only a handful, like a few thousand people, and now we're at 50, 60, 80,000 people will come to Atlanta. Some won't even get tickets. They'll just show up and hang out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, I love it. I hated last year because last year it went away and they were really hoping. And I remember we have one of their communications guys that joins us on the radio a few months ahead of time just to kind of promote it. And they were really hoping, and then just things did not, pan out. They were hoping maybe the 2020 would get underway, would get, kind of healing faster than it did, and it didn't. So I think a lot of people are going to be just swarming to everything they can this year.
Oh, yeah. When Reed Pop sent an email at this point about 3 weeks ago saying officially New York Comic Con in October is going to be live in person again, it was like I had like a reaction inside. I was like,
he threw his spreadsheets in the air like,
I said, my spreadsheets can wait. Oh. I've got to go get my Captain Picard costume out of storage. Engage. I know.
You're going to work on those pecs so you have the real pecs.
I got to get my bald cap already.
Well, and it's going to be funny to see how many people don't fit in their costumes anymore. Now that,
Walt, how dare you?
Not y'all.
We're all spelt and perfect.
Folks are they're heading back to the gym right now saying, I got to get rid of my COVID weight.
Yeah, I've seen my friends.
All right, with your show, we've talked a lot about the different sort of shows around the brand podcast or Pod Clubhouse. You aren't the only two people who are driving content. So you want to give a quick shout out to the rest of the folks that are part of Pod Clubhouse team?
Holy cow, there's so many. Gosh, Mike. Well, definitely Paul and Sheila and Steph and so many people. Inez and oh my gosh. Aisha, my best friend. She's been on so much.
Kat Gonzalez from Shuffle Online and Latinx Lens. That she's been there almost from the beginning. She's been one of our big collaborators. We've done a lot with the So I'm Watching the Show folks, Will and Kristen.
So many people. And we're really looking forward to it. We have two new ideas that are coming up, and we're only going to tell you two, so no one steals our idea. Okay, all right. So this is just for Walt and Alan only, obvious.
All right, everyone,
Okay,
gather
we won't
get him
quiet.
real close here.
All right.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So I'm down in Texas, and I have plenty of Spanish-speaking friends. And doing some research, there's not very many Spanish-speaking podcasts that are not like, so you want to learn how to speak Spanish, but just like TV reviews, right? And so I was like, wow, we can do that. I have friends who are fluent Spanish speakers, and we can sit down and they can do episodes, because we recently had someone on Twitter transcribe our podcast into Spanish for apparently their audience.
Wow.
And so I felt like, wow, okay, this is a real opportunity that I think we should look into. So we're looking into that. And then the other thing is, one of our podcasters recently had a sibling who is an adult diagnosed with autism. And she was like, you know what? I want to go back and rewatch movies with my sister now that we know her diagnosis and everything, and talk about it with her, how she sees it through her point of view and how I see it through my point of view, and talk about it rather than all these years be like annoyed with each other that we didn't see each other's point of view. You know, like now we kind of get why we didn't see each other's point of view. And so I'm really interested in bringing in people with different needs and challenges and have them sit in as hosts, not as topics, but as like, you know, I have my own point of view and I want to like tell you why this works for me as, you know, someone with vision impairment or what have you. And so I'm really excited about working on that. I've worked for a long time with School for the Blind in Austin. I sat on the school board there for 11 years, and now I sit on the board for disability rights. So I just have this huge need to find ways where we can my whole thing is like, not talk about the fact that this is a special needs podcast, but just simply put a microphone in front of anyone's face who wants to talk, no matter what your background is, what's going on. So those two things are super exciting for me.
That is exciting. My middle daughter is autistic, and you're right. When you sit down and talk about a movie or TV show with her, you are going to get an unvarnished opinion, and it is
filterless.
It's absolutely filterless, and it is going to be unique. It's going to be so many times it's not the take I had, and she'll even sit down and watch these crappy movies that I review, and some of the stuff that she comes up with, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely mentioning that in my review, because she will catch something that I don't see, or she'll, something will strike her as very odd or funny. And when we watched Llama Apocalypse, she just over and over and over again was like, wait, stop, we got to talk about this. And it probably took me 4 times longer to watch it, but her insights into it were so funny. And
I love it.
I'll look forward to hearing that.
So 2 of my kiddos have autism, and my youngest has autism and Tourette's. So talk about filterless.
Oh,
he's got stuff to say every second, and it's always out of line. So I'm always like, not appropriate, but like he's gonna say it, and I love it. And there was a day when the first time he saw monkey bars, and he got up on it, and he went through it like a worm, like he wove in and out of it. Yeah. And I said, is that the way you think you do monkey bars? And he was like, well, what else would you do? And I'm like, well, you hang off of them. And he's like, that's a dumb way to like do something. Like, why would you hang off of it for? And it just was one of those like point of view moments where you're like, you just saw this so differently. And I'm so vanilla that I would just be like, well, you do it like every other kid does it.
You hang like a monkey.
No, yeah, like your way was way better. Like, what the heck? So yeah, I think it's just going to be a fascinating little exploration. And I have so many people in my life who have opinions and no way to give them to the world. So I'm excited, whether we have to use YouTube with some closed captioning for some of our deaf friends or whatever we need to do. I want to find some different ways to do this.
My utter lack of upper body strength really makes that an attractive option
so
for going through. I monkey worm bar. It was transformative for me.
Yeah, everyone, we're acting Dune. It's Frank Herbert. Wait, what? Who the hell is this guy?
Exactly.
Like Michael 2, Electric Boogaloo. I'm getting down on the
Electric Boogaloo.
I don't get enough Electric Boogaloo in my life.
Oh, no one does. We all need some more turbo in our life.
That's catching us up pretty much to kind of not only where we are today, but it does kind of give us a little hint, because one of the questions we usually kind of get close to at the end of the interview is, where do you see yourselves in the next few years? And certainly adding this other content and these other sort of ways of looking at a show. But where do you see Pod Clubhouse in the coming years?
World domination.
Super excitingly, we just saw it in US. I just said US because of you.
I did it.
Because of you. It was in Us Weekly, but he keeps calling it US Weekly. So he's killing me with that. So it was in Us Weekly because we just had an interview with Stephen Amell, and old Green Arrow got himself in an argument with his wife on a plane. And we happened to be the last interview he had done. And so they... I'm going to keep calling it US Weekly. So Us Weekly picked up Pod Clubhouse.
It's a patriotic tabloid.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, there you go.
Teasing me with that. Now it's just stuck in my brain.
I said it, though,
picked it up.
I said it, and I was completely unaware of it. I said it so sincerely. You stopped me. You let me go on for about a minute, and you said, you just said, US Weekly.
Us Weekly, right?
I honestly wouldn't have known.
I know. What's like a People magazine, but it was exciting to see it, where I know it's in every like doctor's office and dentist's office, right, Alan? You're making a face.
I'm looking at I'm like, you didn't know it's called Us?
It made me laugh. So so they picked up our interview though and actually quoted it and stuff. And so that was exciting. So
excellent.
Hopefully more of that kind of stuff. And we're going to work really hard this summer on some YouTube content so that there'll be more, especially with the cons, doing a lot of video footage and interviews, like live videos. So.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to get Walt to do his live reaction videos on YouTube of these horrible movies he's watching. I've got ideas, but...
You have to find something to do, Walt, while you're doing it. So like this one lady like folds laundry while she reacts to videos, and it's very funny. So you could do something like that. Like find an activity. You could be like, I don't know, like putting like, lures on a fishing pole or something.
We've already figured out. We're going to go to like all the dumps and stuff. We're going to find like all these old TVs because you don't see the TV. You just have to see him watching it. And we're going to have him at some point getting so angry with these crappy movies, he's just going to beat the hell out of the TV set.
I love it.
You can have the camera. You can have the camera on you making a balloon animal. And when you get annoyed, you can just pop the balloon in a rage moment.
Squeeze the life out of it.
Because it's super cheap. You can buy, 1,000 balloons for 99 cents. And
I could find a balloon company to sponsor that segment.
That's it. Rage balloons.
It's crazy, but I mean, reaction videos are huge. A lot of people are enjoying them. I know I am. I've got them in my coming up entertainment segment. I got a handful that I follow. I find more fun watching somebody react to a movie I've seen 1,000 times that they're seeing for the first time rather than watching regular TV.
Well, is there anything you can put in a box and then slowly unbox it while you watch the movie?
I have not gotten into unboxing videos.
The key.
I was
just unboxing videos are crazy.
I was just about to pitch live here for the first time to Caroline that we started an unboxing video, but it's me opening my mail, and you just watch me cry.
And you're just like, another bill.
Wait, God, I thought I paid this.
Oh no, mine.
Why is electricity so expensive?
Kids, turn the damn lights off.
You can pull the Homer Simpson and say, "Power bill. I paid that last month."
Exactly.
I think there's gold to be had there. Just a dad crying.
By the way, as a now quote empty nester, because all my kids are out, it is funny as hell when they go, "Hey, you didn't leave that light on, did you?" I'm like, "Oh, now you care about leaving lights on in rooms. Okay, I gotcha. Now that you're paying the bills." What's
your line, Mike? You followed on like a dad duck, turning lights off behind everyone.
Behind everyone. Mm-hmm. I am the most inhospitable host that has ever been, because I will follow you around. Oh, you just left the bathroom? Let me go turn off the light that I know you didn't turn off.
Yep.
Drives me insane.
Oh, let's just leave the fan on. We just leave it on all the time. Why not? Yeah, leave the TV. Yeah. My daughter, oh my God, used to drive me nuts. She would just leave the TV on all night. Well, there's nothing on it. I'm like, it's still on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Tom will be awake and then watching like TV in the living room, and I go in his bedroom and his TV's still on, and he's been up for like 4 hours. I'm like, why is your TV still on in your bedroom? What is happening? Are you watching multiple shows?
It's crazy.
This like some optical strain just then. I saw his eyes go like, whoa. That's pretty awesome. Seriously.
This is video gold. I hope you guys get these. Do you guys publish these videos?
No. We probably should, but we don't.
Yeah,
because most of our guests are like, "You're not like Caroline. You're not going to actually have video, are you?" I'm like, just to see each other.
Not me, not with me on it. I'll do like descriptive video. I'll be like, and then Alan's eyes bugged out gigantically. It was crazy. That'd be my part.
Yeah, you were like all freaked out. I'm like, no, we only use it for like just to be able to make eye contact or whatever. But no, I don't. I don't sabotage people. That's not what we do here. In fact, when I edit a show, it's because I'm taking out the stutters or the long pauses to make sure it flows. Because I want a good show, and I want everyone to shine. I just was kind of raised that way. Everybody should look great.
Amen.
Well, hopefully, I apologize for me being on this, lowering that bar for you. So,
well, I didn't complain about you not having an image. I only cared about Caroline not having an image. So
we all complain about Caroline not having an image. So
all right, you boys.
All right, as we start to wind down the interview piece, and we'll have you do it again at the end because you're gonna hang out with us. For folks that are right now just tuning in, just meeting you guys, and they're all excited about all the content, all the stuff that's out there. How do they find the Pod Clubhouse? Where do they sign up? Where can they learn more online? Give us the details.
You want to do the spiel, Caroline?
No, you can.
Well, we're lucky because we actually launched ingeniously right before the pandemic hit. Because we're a remote-based network, because I'm in New York, Caroline and Paul are in Houston, everything we do is remote anyway. So we were really ahead of the curve with no one being able to be in person recording podcasts. But we were also a couple months ahead of Clubhouse, that app coming out. So we really hit the ground with Pod Clubhouse first, and we're able to secure Pod Clubhouse everywhere. So you can get us at podclubhouse.com. You can get us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Pod Clubhouse. We're on youtube.com/Pod Clubhouse. If you want to watch YouTube video of audio only podcasts, you could go there. Where else? And we're on all of our shows, all of our feeds. We have one main feed you can subscribe to, which is the Pod Clubhouse, which gets every single thing we put out, and we put out a lot. Or basically every long-running podcast that we do, we generate their own RSS feed. So if you just want to just listen to Kevin Can podcast himself, you could just go subscribe to that at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere. So
Pandora,
fantastic.
What have you?
Pandora, Amazon, yeah, all of them. So.
And if someone who's listening is saying, well, wait a minute, they've never spotlighted me or talked to me, or do they just reach out to you? Are you looking, or do you guys have to go out, or can people say, hey, if you want me for something, do they raise their hand? I mean, how do you find other shows, and how do you bring people on?
I would love for people just to reach out to us so we don't have to reach out to them. Yeah, you just
it makes life easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's super funny. Sometimes we get those people who are super suspicious of us, and they'll be like, what exactly are you selling? What do I have to do if I come? And we're like, nothing. Seriously, we just want to chat with you. And they're like, with me? This sounds bogus. They're like, okay. But no, of course, if anyone wants to come chat with us, we're only there, just like you said, Alan, to make everyone look their very best. So they come on, and we edit like crazy, so nobody's mom's going to be wagging fingers at them.
Yeah, you just have to leave us your first pet's name, your mother's maiden name,
and the street you grew up on.
Four of your social
and then the last four of your social. That's all you need. That's the basic verification system that we have.
After
but honestly,
that,
you can just DM us anywhere. Twitter is best because we're one of me or Caroline are always on Twitter in the DM checking and chatting. But Instagram, you can email us at press@podclubhouse.com. So we make ourselves extremely accessible. So
excellent. And of course, the website is podclubhouse.com. It's got all the details there as well.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes,
excellent.
Alan, that is correct.
All right. Well, you guys said you wanted to hang out for a little bit, so we're gonna test your improv skills as we move along to our next segment. This is that segment where Walt, every week in our special Facebook listeners group. It's a private group. You've got to join it you go to facebook.com/The Wilder Ride, click the join group button. And if you answer a couple of questions so we know you're a real person and not a bot, we let you in, and you get to vote every week on the 3 movies he puts out there to be part of a segment we like to call
God, what is this? Stop it! I gotta get me out of this house!
Walt, what was the movie you get to watch this past week?
Well, somebody asked me if this is a new genre. I hope it's not. This week it was the 1996 sci-fi thriller Space Truckers.
That's what I voted for.
Yeah, I think this might be the first time you ever voted for the one that won.
That won. Nobody wants the movies I like.
Okay, so this one. So this movie has a 5.3 on IMDb, which is on the top end, believe it or not, of the movies.
There's only one that was better, and that's Waterworld.
Yes, and that piece of shit, Waterworld. Damn it! I can't believe Jeff made me watch that stupid damn movie. All right, so IMDb gives us this breakdown of this movie. A space trucker and his cute fiancée are on their way from a space station to Earth with an unknown cargo. When the space pirates hijack him, 5,000 disintegrator robots are found in the cargo. For the first time this season, that is actually the plot.
Holy crap.
IMDb got it right. So I'm very proud of them for doing that. It is a very, very cliched movie. It's 95
Wait a minute.
minutes.
Oh, a man and a woman on a with an unknown shipment on a container going from one planet to another. No, I've never heard a subplot like that before.
Never heard it. Okay, so this blows my mind. What do you just take a shot based on what we've had in the past? What would you say the budget for this movie would be?
$100,000.
$100,000.
Yeah.
It's a little higher.
Really?
The budget for this movie is $25 million.
That's almost like a real movie.
This is actually a real movie. It is it's distributed by Goldcrest Films, which I'm not really familiar with, but the actual star of this movie is a guy who you may have heard of named Dennis Hopper.
I may have heard of him. He showed up in your review last week.
Yes, he did. Well, this time I sit down, I've started watching the trailers to just see, can I possibly stomach this movie if it wins? So I watched the trailer to this one. I was like, oh, a guy who looks like Dennis Hopper is the main character in here. That should be interesting. It's actually Dennis Hopper. Another person who you might have heard of is also in this, George Wendt.
Yes, from Cheers.
Norm from Cheers, yeah. And then, do you know who Debbie Mazar is?
Sure.
Fans of Younger.
She was on Younger, yeah.
Yeah, she was on Younger. She was also in Goodfellas. She's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, she has had a great career. So you have three really good actors that are playing in this movie, and this is actually a good movie.
Really?
Believe it or not. If you sit me down and say, okay, this or Goodfellas or this or Star Wars, obviously, it's not in that category, but I could sit down and watch 93 minutes of this movie without any problem. I wouldn't stop and walk in the kitchen and start doing dishes or go cut my grass or anything while the movie's continuing to play. It's better than Waterworld, I will tell you that. There are a couple scenes that are not great. Dennis Hopper apparently doesn't realize that when he's in a spacesuit doing a space walk, he should at least act like he's in zero gravity. Not very convincing there, but it's not a great epic story. It's, like I said, it's very predictable. There are a few parts where they really cut corners in the writing and production and editing and special effects and sound and everything else. But it really is not bad, and it's actually worth watching. So if you're so inclined, and I think what I would say about this movie is it is a very good B movie. So if you like B movies, put this on your list and check it out. Dennis Hopper is actually pretty funny, and he's Dennis Hopper. You know what you get in every Dennis Hopper movie, and he is that to a T. So of all the crappy movies that we've watched so far, this one is at the top. All the rest of them are going to have to hit this bar for me to be positive, because Space Truckers 1996 starring Dennis Hopper is actually a really good movie.
I appreciate that it's PG-13 and sensuality is listed. Wow.
Yeah, there is some sensuality
with the cute fiance, no doubt. Okay.
With the cute okay, so
what a hilarious description, the cute fiance. It's like not even like really, like not a beautiful woman or anything, but cute fiance, like she's got a good personality.
Yeah.
I kind of think that they wanted someone else, because there are a couple of references that they make to her that I'm like, no, that's not really how she looks. So I have a feeling they had written for someone else, and that person realized what this was and said no. And they brought her in instead. But I mean, she does a great job. She plays the part very, very well. But yeah, cute fiance is probably about right. There are some parts in it that are a little uncomfortable because it is 1996 and they probably weren't quite up with 1996. But other than that, it's really good. It's worth watching if you like bad movies.
This movie has maybe one of my favorite trivia facts I've ever read ever attached to it that I just saw while you were talking. Can I read it real
Absolutely.
quick?
Please do.
The film was involved in a defamation lawsuit between Dennis Hopper and Rip Torn, where Dennis Hopper publicly stated Torn pulled a knife on him on the set of Easy Rider back in the 60s. Hopper's representatives tried to settle the defamation suit by floating the offer of a supporting role in Space Truckers, which Torn's representatives refused. Yeah. I'm not going to be in your movie.
This would have been the perfect Rip Torn movie.
Yeah.
Like, he would have fit in this movie absolutely perfect. I can think of 4 characters he could have played in this. I mean, they really would not have had to have written it different at all. For him to be in it.
96 is the year before Rip Torn's career really pops off again with Men in Black. So he could have probably used the work.
He could have.
He was holding out.
Got Charles Dance in it. There was no Charles Dance talk. Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones.
Well, if you go down that list, and here's part of my problem with this.
Walt, it's a stacked cast.
Well, Mike, so many of these movies, I'm like, one person in the cast has their picture on IMDb. This actually has people who act in real movies, in real TV shows all throughout it.
I like the character name given to Sandra Dickinson in this is Bitchin' Betty.
Well, sheer.
What a great name.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a really good B movie.
It looks like something
Sweeney is credited as Mr. Zesty. That's a whole spin-off series I feel like we should have gotten.
This almost looks like it could be a Roger Corman movie.
Well, there is a Space Truckers 2 out there. I have not watched it because I didn't want to shade my view of this one.
The story of Zesty? We can only hope that's
I would hope. I mean, you would assume it has to be that, right? If there's any justice in the universe. But even George Wendt in this there are a couple things that I've seen George Wendt in where it's just like, you can tell he's just picking up a paycheck. He's actually kind of all in on this one. So he has a really great, hilarious part. He has a fantastic death. So, and sorry for the spoilers. It was a 1996 movie.
Walt.
Way to ruin the movie,
Walt.
Just after he got done telling everybody, go see it. By the way, here's what happens.
Definitely.
Here's what happens on the last page of the book.
Now, I would say that if you have any herbs that you might take at times before you see a bad movie, that might help your enjoyment of this one. But not that I'm promoting that, but I'm just saying that might help. But
I had a feeling this is going to become an oregano pusher podcast. I sensed it.
It was wafting in the air.
I don't have herbs, but I got a whole bag full of gummies. Wow. All right. So, folks, you need to join the listeners group, and you can be part of the next vote. See what... Hey, it took Walt, 20-some movies to finally find one you liked.
Yeah, and I'm actually almost enthusiastic about this one.
You are. I can tell. It's like a breath of fresh air.
It really is. I mean, like, those other movies are so freaking bad, and being subjected to Waterworld last week, this really was a breath of fresh air.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to our news segment, a segment we like to call
It's No Bullshit.
And we know it's that way because we found them all online, so they've got to be true. Walt, you've got the first news story.
Well, and this one comes from the AP, and we know the AP never gets it wrong. But police rescue spooked nude sunbathers from Australian forest.
Holy cow.
They're spooked and they're nude, and they were in the forest. There's a lot going on here.
I mean, you think Australia, you think forest.
Yes, you do.
Oh, absolutely.
Densely packed. Mirkwood, let's go.
And all right. Very jumpy nudes, too.
Well, this comes from Sydney, Australia. Police have found 2 men who have been rescued from an Australian forest after they were startled by a deer while nude sunbathing on a beach and became lost.
Can I tell you right now, I'm no longer interested because there's only 2 dudes, okay? I'm sorry.
This sounds a little Brokeback Mountain-y.
Yeah, well,
I was more caught up on the deer. Deer in a forest in Australia. I think they all got it wrong.
And nude? What is all
I think it's actually a truck stop in upstate New York.
What? Yeah, exactly. They're
goodness.
changing every detail to hide these people's identities.
Well, I think this whole thing is just kind of one of those, you can really overthink it and you don't want to.
Yeah. It sounds more like it was hobbits in New Zealand than nudists in Australia. So
Spooked nudist, Mike. They're jumpy.
So they were on the beach and a deer shows up and they decide, let's run into the only place we know deer live, the woods.
Right.
They were trying to trick them, like, go into their home.
Yeah, we'll show
Keep
you.
your Lyme disease away, devil deer.
Oh my God.
I shall not get your ticks. You're the most ferocious of predators in the world.
Right.
You have to enunciate ticks better there.
Ticks.
There are so many things you could have said there.
Lyme disease is communicable. Protect yourselves, people.
Always use your condiments.
Yes.
Always use your deerskin condiments.
All right.
I like that you guys are like
Oh my God.
They're looking at each other going like, why did we invite them?
No, this is so much
Do you
better
not
than they-
remember when we were on with you before?
Oh, I do.
we remember.
I get like a weird email. It's like, are you sure you want me to print everything or post everything as we said it? I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
A weird email or a very considerate email?
Yeah.
We're just gonna put that like a hidden track on an album way at the end after our post-production tag. We'll
Backward
see
mask.
whoever finds it finds it. You know.
Next time when you're reading spreadsheets, I'm going to be like, while Mike is reading spreadsheets, please listen to this excerpt from The Wilder Ride. We'll totally be like, The Wilder Ride.
Speaking of spreading, let's go for it.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you got 2 nude dudes on a beach, and they get spooked by Bambi, and they run into the woods. All right,
Well,
next.
the men called for help about 6 p.m. Sunday after they became lost in the Royal National Park south of Sydney. The police statement said,
How freaking far do they run into the woods?
Oh, the rescue party part is coming up. Unbelievably, we saw 2 men sunbaking naked on a beach in the South Coast, Police Commissioner Mick Fuller reports. They were startled by a deer, ran into the national park, and got lost. The rescue involved police aircraft, the state emergency service, and ambulance officers. The men, aged 30 and 49, were fined 1,000 Australian dollars each for breaching the stay-at-home pandemic order that restricted them to Sydney, the police said. The younger man was found naked and carrying a backpack, while the older man was partially clothed, the police statement said. Fuller described the pair as, quote unquote, idiots. Clearly putting people at risk by leaving home without a proper reason, then getting lost in the national park and diverting important resources away from the health operation. I think they should be embarrassed, Fuller said.
I mean, to be fair, before the deer interrupted, I make you bet those 2 very much had a reason for being there.
Right.
I think the 30 and 49-year-old, I think, definitely had a reason to be nude sunbathing together.
Partially clothed just means they had masks on.
And flip-flops.
And
I think they say thongs in that case.
I like that he had time to grab his backpack, but not any of the clothes that
but not put any clothes on.
that they had at some point.
Backpack.
Yeah, right. What was in the backpack? No clothes. Walt,
Oh.
clearly.
Plugs.
Oh, that would be actually even
temperature
worse if they
range.
found out that all their clothes were like, oh, we didn't think to open it.
Well, the temperature range on Sunday in the town nearest where the men were lost was 3 degrees Celsius or 37 degrees Fahrenheit to 19 degrees Celsius, which is 66 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's
The pair
winter
were
over
among-
there.
Yeah, it is. It's winter.
What?
The pair were among 44 people fined by police on Sunday for breaching a public health order after Sydney began a 2-week lockdown on Friday due to new COVID-19 clusters. What were they doing sunbathing in 66 degree weather?
It's no bullshit.
Well, did you see the last line from Fuller, that quote where he said just one word, shrinkage?
Well, it answers why they didn't go in the water, too. So.
There you go.
So that's
some polar bears getting scared by deer. It's
It was a bear situation.
a real bear situation. Bear cub situation getting spooked by deer is, I don't know. Doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right.
All right. Well, mine's not nearly as good with story 1. I saved my better one for story 2. But this did just happen today. The story that was filed in today's news. What would you do if there were millions of dollars suddenly in your bank account? What if it was actually closer to $1 billion?
That's a lot of nuts!
Would you even believe it? Would you take the money and spend it right away? What would you do? Well, it happened to a lady, and this is what she did. Julia Yankowski went to pull out money from her local Chase Bank in Largo Saturday before grabbing cash. She wanted to check her balance. When she did, it said she had $999,985,855.94 in her account. Saying that she was beyond shocked is an obvious understatement, saying, quote, "Oh my God, I was horrified. I know most people would think they'd won the lottery, but I was just horrified. I realized this is going to get me in trouble. I know I can't do anything about this." She stopped to grab a simple $20 bill because that's all the money she knew she wanted to get out of her account. But when she went to withdraw it for whatever this error was that put all this money in her account, it was now locked. They wouldn't even give her $20, saying it would overdraft her account. She said, quote, "I know I've read stories about people that took the money or took out money and then they had to repay it. So I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to make sure that I get my money," because she's worried now when they've locked her account. Will they just take everything out of her account? How will they know how much was artificially added versus what was hers? As of the printing of this story, she said she was attempting to reach the bank because she tried to call them and couldn't get past the phone tree to a live person and needed to go to a Monday because it was over the weekend. She had to wait till Monday morning to attempt to straighten it out.
It's no bullshit.
But what would you do if you opened your debit account and realized there was nearly $1 billion suddenly in there?
I'd look for John Quinones coming out of the bushes or something. I know that motherfucker tried to test me, trying to figure out what I would do. I'd be like, "I want my money, John. I didn't do nothing with it." No, I don't know.
I would go on iTunes and buy the song "Take the Money and Run" and follow that advice.
You know what? This would, though, be exactly what would happen to me. Not only would I suddenly have all this money, I wouldn't even be able to get my money that I had in there initially back out. I'd be like, "What? I can't even get $20 out? Come on."
That's the real slap in the face, right?
Yes.
You can't get your 20 out.
Right.
Yes.
You have $1 billion, but you can't get 20.
Right. Sad.
Age-old predicament.
Yes.
We've all been there.
Yes.
Who hasn't?
That is
really?
the age-old predicament. For all of us with $1 billion in our account.
You know,
I mean, I feel like both of these news stories have been really relatable,
right?
to your average person.
I had the nickel for every time these news stories happen to me.
Every time I'm nude sunbathing and I check my bank account.
Mike, I can't tell you how anxious I am when I'm nude sunbathing and that Bambi deer horn comes poking out at me.
Oh,
like,
is that what that was?
And I go running.
Try and poking. I know he's after my money.
I'm
Honey,
sleeping.
we've got $1 billion again.
Let me rest.
The deer was really the new Publishers Clearinghouse check giver. He completely misunderstood what was happening.
He just had it hanging on his antlers.
That's it.
Exactly. They just misunderstood.
He's the reincarnated spirit of Ed McMahon.
Oh, no. Do it, Mike. Do it. Go on. I know you want to.
No.
He's got a Ed McMahon in there hiding deep
does
down
he?
in his belly.
Is that where he went?
I don't
He wanted to. Yeah, it's in Mike's belly.
It's in his belly.
It's in his bell.
No.
Oh my gosh. Oh, poor Mike. Sorry.
All right. Well, our next story, right along the same lines.
Oh, this would be fun.
Fugitive. What?
I said this ought to be fun.
Oh, this is going to be stupid. It comes from Florida. So,
Excellent.
Step one. Check.
Yeah, buckle your stupid belts. Wrong fugitive. Man arrested in Mexico is not Polk County DUI suspect wanted for 14 years, the police say. WFLA Channel 8 reports from Tampa. The Florida Highway Patrol announced Friday that the man who was captured in Mexico earlier this week and believed to be a Polk County man who's been on the run for 14 years, is actually a completely different fugitive.
Inconceivable.
The Florida Highway Patrol announced the arrest of a man who they believed was Brian Dale Andrews on Wednesday. According to troopers, the man was arrested and returned to the United States after he had identified himself to Mexican authorities as Mr. Andrews, who has been wanted in Polk County for 14 years in connection with a deadly DUI crash. But on Friday, troopers said the United States Marshal Service confirmed the man they had in custody was in fact another fugitive named Ernest McBride. McBride has warrants for his arrest out in Arkansas and Missouri. Despite similar physical characteristics, troopers said fingerprint comparisons proved the man they had taken into custody was McBride and not Andrews. Andrews was 29 years old at the time of the crash that claimed the lives of the McGowan family. Goes on to talk about his DUI arrest. According to troopers, Andrews was on the run after he was released from the Polk County Jail before 2 DUI manslaughter charges were filed against him. Florida State troopers continue to search for Andrews. Anyone with information is asked to contact them or Crime Stoppers.
It's no bullshit.
What are the chances you arrest a guy who's got the similar characteristics of somebody that you've been wanting for 14 years, and it turns out that it's not him, but he also has charges anyway?
And this dimwit used the name of someone who was wanted by the Marshal Service.
Yeah, that again, the age-old predicament of using another fugitive's name.
Right.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, no, I'm not him. I'm Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yes, no one would ever suspect me of a crime.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, so criminal dummies. But I do love that they arrest somebody, and sure enough,
it was a successful day.
Successful day for the Marshal Service.
Horseshoes, hand grenades, and arresting suspects.
There you go.
They have to change that sign in that lobby that says 0 days since the last wrong arrest.
Damn it, Wilson, you broke the streak.
You're up to 3.
3 hours.
They're like 3.
1, 2, 3. You got the count in there.
No, we really knew it was him all along.
Well, since we're on criminals, we got to wrap up with a fantastic story of a criminal who eventually understands that what goes around comes around. We have a story of Bernio Jordan Enzo Verhagen, who is a Suriname-born con man with a Dutch citizenship. Now, he's apparently very much into what he does, conning people, even though he's only 27. Verhagen has amassed an impressive list of charges for fraud and scam. However, it seems he'll finally be brought to justice. When trying to impersonate a famous European soccer player in Colombia, a group of prostitutes ended up calling his bluff.
You use your tongue prettier than a $20 whore.
When Verhagen couldn't produce the kind of riches he claimed to have, the sex workers started pummeling the absolute dog squeeze out of him to the point that the police were called simply to save his life. Now, you can probably guess how the whole thing ends when the police get their hands on a famous scammer, but let's look at how this started. I'll sum up a lot of this. This Verhagen guy realized that as a grifter in Europe, and he also played around a little bit in Africa, he could imitate or pretend that he was a famous international soccer player. What he would do is he would don their identity. He would actually walk into the high-end stores or places like where he would rent a yacht, or he would bring a big group of people out for a very well-to-do party at a fancy restaurant. And then he would say, well, of course, we're not allowed to carry funds. That'll get wired to you from my managers, my handlers. And so he would scam all these people pretending to be these soccer players. And eventually, when the heat would get too hot in one country, he would just move to another one and do it all over again. He scammed tourist companies, yacht companies, restaurants. In this case, he decided to head to Colombia, where he tried the same thing again. This time, where he decided he wanted a night of fun and games, he hired an entire group of prostitutes, telling him that he was yet another soccer player. The prostitutes, though, when they asked for funds for services rendered, he said, well, I have to wire transfer it. They said, no, you have to pay us cash. We need the money now. If there's any moral to the story, let it be this. Don't mess around with Colombian hookers.
It's a core meltdown, sir. It can't be stopped.
Enraged that Verhagen couldn't produce the money he promised them, they charged him. As they beat Verhagen on the San Mancha's Rodero Beach, a group gathered around them. At the women's coaxing, some of the onlookers actually joined in when they found out why they were beating the hell out of him, and onlookers started to whoop his ass as well. Others, however, felt the whole situation was getting out of hand, and to prevent Verhagen from being basically lynched on the scene, they called police. So now Verhagen, a foreigner who's in the hands of police. It just so happens the Colombian cops have learned something interesting from Interpol. Verhagen had been convicted of fraud in Denmark, and he'd been charged with kidnapping in Chile. Looking at his unpaid financial records, it was clear to the cops this was a professional grifter. Unfortunately for them, Verhagen didn't have any active international arrest warrants, so they had to let him go, although San Marta's police commander invited companies Verhagen had defrauded to contact him. It seemed Verhagen had gotten off scot-free, but then his luck did not last. A few days later, Dutch authorities did in fact issue an international warrant, and he is now waiting extradition from Colombia to the Netherlands to face a long list of charges, all because he hired a bunch of Colombian hookers who wanted to get paid.
It's amazing, it's astounding, but it's no bullshit.
Growing up in New York, you learn not to mess with Colombian hookers at a really young age. It's not like
Good
the
life
first thing you learn, but you learn it quickly enough.
You do learn it.
B, I'm curious if anyone has seen David Beckham since this story broke, because I feel like David Beckham may actually just be an elaborate ruse that this guy has been running this scam this all time. Someone check and see if they've ever been in the same place at the same time, because I'm telling you, you may not have ever seen it.
What is it?
I've been
Deadpool
totally
says?
on that beach, man.
It's like David
What does he
Beckham
say?
mouth sexed a can of helium.
Mouth sexed, he said.
Did you ever hear the movie Deadpool? Remember when he called David Beckham? He was like, hey, he talks like he mouth sexed a can of helium.
You ever heard David Beckham speak? It's like he mouth sexed a can of helium.
I was gonna say Lionel Messi for that joke right now, but I didn't want you to get like enraged fans who are like huge soccer fans charging at you. So
my goodness. Well, you know what?
Tired.
It's why we love combing the news for these little stories you probably don't get in the nightly news, but you get it right here on the Wilder Ride. So let's move to our final segment, a chance for our guests to also weigh in. It's our entertainment segment. This is a chance for you guys to find out what it is we've been watching, what we've been listening to, and what we've been reading. We always start with watching first, and so our guests don't have to feel like they have to go first. We'll go to Walt, and then it'll be me, then Caroline, and then Michael. Walt, this past week, what have you been watching?
Well, actually, one that you had recommended, I ended up binge watching all of season 1, and that is 10 Star. And excellent cop show.
Tim Roth.
Tim Roth, yeah, he is fantastic. And I think it's an Amazon Prime show.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really great. I highly recommend it. Season 6 of Bosch just dropped yesterday, I believe. And
I believe it's season 7. It's 7 or 8, whatever the final one.
Yeah, 7. Their final season. And
it got delayed a year because of, last year.
Something, yeah. And it is, I'm trying to watch an episode a day. I might skip today since we won't be out of here till 11, but
did they drop them all, or they're doing it 1 week at a time?
No, they're dropped them all.
They did, really?
So, yeah.
Huh.
So the whole season's out.
I might be up for a bit.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up getting, and it's already off to a great start. So that's Bosch. If you haven't watched it, people I know in law enforcement love this show, say it's one of the best cop shows out there. So that's on Amazon Prime. And then I kind of ran across a gem that a friend of mine recommended. It's an Eddie Murphy movie from about 10 years ago called Mr. Church. And
that's a great movie.
It is.
He moves
so
in
good.
to help be like the helper and the cooker. Oh my God, that is a fantastic flick.
Absolutely great movie. And it had a very tough, very tough scene for me when the girl's mother died of cancer. But Eddie Murphy, this may be his best role. We all know him from his comedies and everything, but this is a dramatic role. It is really fantastic, and not my kind of movie usually, but I mean, from start to finish, I was totally in, and just absolutely love this movie. So I think it's on Netflix. I think that's where it's streaming. But Mr. Church with Eddie Murphy, just absolutely fantastic.
Great movie, certainly. And of course, Bosch being back, you know, that was one of those series I've told so many people, go watch Bosch if you've never seen it, based on the Michael Connelly novels. I haven't seen it yet, so I didn't put it on my list, but I will be watching it because the first, whatever it is, 6 or 7 seasons before they had to take the extended hiatus for the pandemic, I have been waiting for the final season. And you know, they've already announced that they're planning to have a spin-off series based off of these characters. So I'll be watching that too.
I'll be watching that too.
Great writing. Anything else you got that you're watching?
No, those are really the 3 that I wanted to talk about.
All right, well, I will add to it Tin Star, because I mentioned it. I had the first 2 episodes down last week. I also finished binging the first season. I did read that there are only 3 seasons, and so that it does wrap up after season 3, so I've already started season 2. Still enjoying it. I had a huge issue with, I think, the plot in the final episode of season 1. I don't know why, when someone has already broken into your home and you've caught them red-handed, why you're trying to hide the body and hide the evidence, but they did. I guess we'll find that out maybe in season 2. It was weird. My father-in-law has been visiting, so we finally opened up the MCU box for him. He had never seen a single Marvel movie, so we introduced him to Iron Man. He actually enjoyed it. Part of our throwbacks, we watched Kindergarten Cop, Galaxy Quest, and Silverado. All of those movies we watched this past week with my father-in-law, so it was cool to go in the Wayback Machine and check in some classics. I'll do a quick shout out to my YouTube channels I love. Ashley Burton, she is a millennial who reviews movies, first-time reactions. She said, quote, "I am the shell of a human I used to be after watching Fried Green Tomatoes and literally weeping scene after scene. It was great." And then she went and watched the classic 1962 edition of Cape Fear. So she just watched that. I got to say, big shout out to Radio Labyrinth, our podcast friends. They do a YouTube video as well on Saturdays. They had a YouTube discussion on Loki, the series, which is, of course, a branch of the MCU. Big shout out to the Radio Labyrinth and their YouTube channel. Popcorn in Bed, it's another YouTube channel. She just got done watching The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, and The Battle of the Five Armies. She also watched Schindler's List and fell apart on that one, having never seen that movie before. And my last and final, the Daley Doug. He was with us a few weeks back. He just recently reviewed Sweet Sister Mary from Queensryche, and part of that was a shout out, Walt, to you and me for having recommended it and having been on our podcast. So a big shout out back to Doug, who is part of the Daley Doug, a music composer, a musician by trade, a PhD music theoretician who likes to review metal and rock music on his channel. So that's really cool.
Yeah, super guy.
All right. It's a lot there. Caroline, let's go to you. From your perspective, you guys watch and review movies. You mentioned a few of the things that you do on your channel. What in the last week can you say you've been watching?
Oh boy. So I am kind of schizophrenic with my television watching. So one is going to be a little sassy and one is going to be very sweet. Okay.
Okay.
That's kind of Caroline. Okay. So I'm watching a Netflix series called Sex Life. And basically the little tagline for that is: a suburban mom of 2 takes a fantasy-charged trip down memory lane that sets her very marriage present on a collision course, you guys, with her wild child past. So let me just say that mouth sex you mentioned earlier, that is heavily present in the beginning and the early episodes. It's rather graphic, so this is not one that you watch with the little ones around. But yeah, this is an excellent one if you are looking to get some action going in your house.
Oh, really?
It's great because it's sex positive from like the female point of view. Like there's it's from the female gaze. The idea of it. So she's married to, was it Sarah Shahi?
Mike Vogel, yeah.
Married to Mike Vogel. So there's a shot in like the pilot where, movies and TV shows where like the camera lingers on the girl's body, like goes up and down. You get that shot, but it's from her point of view, lingering on like her husband kind of thing. And
there's a lot of lingering, y'all.
There's a lot of lingering, and it's just unapologetic. This woman is just like, I have a great husband. He's wonderful, but I need sex like you can't believe
all
the time, and it's unapologetic. It's fantastic. We talked about it a bit from ATX.
Cool.
It's very one of those living it out on the screen. And then the next one is super sweet. I've been watching Penguin Town, which I love. It's also on Netflix, and it's so adorable. It's in this little South African town. These little penguins come and they like raise their families, and it is so adorable. Aww. They like name the little couples like Mr. and Mrs. Bougainvillea, who have their nest in the bougainvillea bush. It's so cute. So I like totally watch this mouth sex show, and then I'm like, I need to follow that up with some parenting lovingness of the penguins.
You need like the cleansing breath.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm tired myself out. I need to just watch something sweet now.
After a night on the street corner, you need a shower. I get it.
That's, I don't hang on the street corner per se, but definitely like in the Lamborghini, whatnot.
Oh,
I'm a little more high end.
Up against the wall in the club, right?
There you go. The pinball. Mike, the pinball machine. Shut up. That scene was amazing. Yeah, there's some good business. The Kitchen Island.
I had a delay.
You might have texted me like the Kitchen Island, and I was like, "Oh my god, did you see Mike Vogel's butt?" It was awesome. It's good stuff. And then I was like, Mr. Bougainvillea, he might not make it back from feeding for the chicks. Like I was equally worried.
I've heard the phrase "yes, daddy," but never quite said like it's said in that show. And to be clear,
Mr.
Sex Life, not from Penguin Town. They're not saying yes,
right.
Yes, daddy, and Penguin Town.
Don't cross the shows.
They're raising those chicks to be good citizens.
Yeah, what the crap is going on in Penguin Town?
Careful, because if you're talking about banging chicks and penguins in the same sentence, people might get confused.
And that's okay, because that's Caroline Town. So just like welcome. Like I might be talking about the chicks on Penguin Town. It'd be super sweet, and I might be talking about that Kitchen Island. So
and we may be doing a psych test on you to see how you interpret each of those.
Exactly. So. Mike, what are you watching these days?
Oh, well, we talked a little bit about Kevin can himself on AMC. I think everyone should be watching that show. I think it's fascinating. Let's see. Central Park just started its new season 2 on Apple. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't watched it and you like musicals or you like singing in shows and cartoons, go watch Central Park. It's a first-rate cast and it's extremely funny, but it's also got a lot of heart. It's a great story. So season 2 on that just started. So I've been watching that. Actually, I've watched the whole season already, but with other people because I got the screeners for it. So I watched all of it. I binged it in like a day because they're only like 22-minute episodes.
Wow.
On Epix has a lot of stuff coming out. There's a sword and sandal show right now called Domina, which actually already aired in the UK on the Sky Network, but Epix just started it in like June 6th. That tells the tale of like the fall of like the Roman Empire or the fall of the Roman Republic, the birth of the Roman Empire, but through like the eyes of like one of the females who was like close to the power struggle there. And it's, it's British. So, it's already got like prestige with it, but it's a sword and sandal story. Who doesn't love, gladiator, Roman chariot kind of stuff? I
love gladiator Roman stuff.
There you go. Epix has an adaptation coming out in August called Chapelwaite, which if you know Stephen King's short story Jerusalem's Lot, not the movie, not the book Salem's Lot, the short story, which is actually a prequel to Salem's Lot, is called Jerusalem's Lot. This is a TV adaptation, 8-episode TV adaptation of that coming out in August, which I think is pretty good. It's a Stephen King adaptations can be really hit or miss, but I like this one. It's got Emily Hampshire from Schitt's Creek. So I was excited to watch that one. That's coming out in August. I don't know. I could probably go on, but those are where I'm at right now, I think.
Okay.
That's one good note.
All right. We'll move on to a segment that tends to be sometimes smaller or shorter, depending on how much time we've had during the week. It's called What Are You Reading? Walt, anything on your bookshelf, nightstand, anything that you're thumbing through this past week?
I have got a stack of stuff, but I'm really trying to concentrate on reading the 50-year mission, the first 25 years of Star Trek. And it is really good so far. I'm not as far into it as I would have hoped to have been at this point, but it is written by a guy who got a lot of insight, who was a fan. And then he started working for a sci-fi magazine and kind of got into the world from that. And so it's a real neat fans inside view. So we've mentioned it a couple times, but if you haven't had a chance to read that or pick it up, definitely pick it up. It is by Edward Gross, and you can get it on Amazon or anywhere else, but the 50-year mission.
I will add to it, since you got me an extra copy. I've been working my way through that, not nearly as far as I needed to. The book I did read to get ready for a podcast that the episode dropped last week was written by Dr. Larry Waldman, a book, How to Love Your Child More Than Hate Your Ex, a story of how many times the divorced couples worry about doing things to their ex in favor of taking care of their kids and putting their kids second. And so it's a great book on parenting for especially blended families and getting back and saying, you know what, your marriage is done. Accept it. That person is still that child's mom or dad. You know what? Take care of the child. Don't worry about the ex. And it was a really good read. A lot of stuff it was common sense, but it's sad how few people have common sense when it comes to emotional turmoil. So those are the two things I have on my plate. Caroline?
I am reading for my book club. I am reading Last Summer at the Golden Hotel, and it is super sweet. It's like a getaway book in the Catskills. Super good if you love like Dirty Dancing, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's like right up your alley. So easy going, something for me to sit around with the ladies and be like, can you even believe that? You know, that kind of that side.
With a glass of wine in one hand and a book in the other. Yes.
Oh, vodka. Are you kidding me? There's no glass of wines up in here.
Okay.
I take it more.
It's a glass of a goblet, but it's filled with vodka.
I'm Lithuanian, so it's coming from my Lithuanian Monopolova vodka, please. Yes. Mike, how about you? Are you reading these days? Are you literate?
I spend my days reading really interesting private placement memorandums, really sexy stuff.
Will they, won't they kind of business.
Will they get their $1 billion of Series A financing off the ground? I don't know. I gotta wait to the end of the PPM. I gotta get what those risk factors are. You may lose your whole investment. Oh shit!
What a page turner!
Roller coaster ride, right?
It is. I was like, these guys have so much experience. Oh shit! Next page, they may lose everything.
You're like, pass the Post-it notes.
Past performance is no guarantee of future performance. Oh, God.
So that would be no. You're not really reading anything.
No, I mean, I have on my bookshelf right now. I'm actually getting through the Invincible comic series because I fell in love with the Amazon show when it came out. And I had
that
not
is a great
read.
show.
It was so good. It was so good. And I'm a big Kirkman fan, going back to The Walking Dead. And so I'm catching up on that. Me and my son were kind of like reading together. We'll each read a chapter, and then like he'll go and read up like the same number of like pages or chapters in like the book kind of thing. And so we go back and forth on like the big comic book novels. So we're working through that. It's huge. I mean, the three volumes probably stand over a foot tall if you stack them on top of each other.
Which is the way that Mike does actually review books, by height off of.
I do height and weight. and net asset value. That's a
Speaking of Walt, when you're saying like different POVs, my middle kid comes in, and just because the way she talks, she goes, "Mom, why are these bananas so tall?" I was like, "Long? They're long. They're not tall.
They don't stand up.
So tall." I was like, "Go figure." They ate their vegetables.
They didn't talk back to their mom and clean their room. That's why.
Right. You guys want to know a hot trick? If you take a push pin and you use the tip of it, you can write on bananas, and it doesn't show up for like a day because of like the decay. So I write stuff all the time, like, "I'm looking at you," and like stuff like that.
Oh my God, that would be so cool to do.
Do it. It's super fun.
I like it.
I'm that mom.
I like it.
I can also tell you, keeping it in the bag, the green bag that you get at the supermarket, keeps them from over ripening much longer. Keeps them fresher much longer than if you take it out of the bag.
Really?
They will. I did a science experiment, a 6th grade science experiment on it last year. So yeah, I learned something.
I feel like we need to have that little NBC thing. The more you know, go fly across the screen.
Yeah. That's all we want, is people to learn more. Whether it's about mouth sex or bananas, we want you to learn more.
Learn more. And funny, you would use mouth sex and bananas in the same sentence, but let's move on.
I know, I'm just like that.
Look at the curve on that banana.
Why is that banana so tall?
That's a big banana.
Well, that one might make you stand up, so there you go. Walt,
I at least have to stretch beforehand.
Let's move to our final category before we wrap this one up with a bow. What are you listening to?
Well, I wasn't going to mention this one, but I had to since Mike is here. There's a podcast called The Great Trials Podcast, and it has
sexy
episode titles like Lee et al. Versus Burkle and Company Contractors Incorporated et al.
You are getting me hot and bothered, Walter.
$9 million verdict. So if you're
Hold
weird
on, Walt.
or an
Let me just say
attorney-
this. Spreadsheet.
Legalese.
Oh, did you do that in Excel? Oh.
Well, and then for normal people, I've recommended Camp Hell Anawake, and they keep coming out with great episodes every week. Anawake was a kind of a rehabilitation camp for kids here in Georgia that was really just an excuse to abuse kids and then use them as free labor. And the episode that dropped last week, which will be 2 weeks ago when our show airs, they actually have an expert come in and talk about kind of this industrial child abuse world. So it's fascinating. The stories are, I was going to say great. The stories are interesting, but it's hard to listen to sometimes. But it really does cue you into some things to watch for abuse and things like that. And again, that's called Camp Hell Anawake. And then by my dad's recommendation a few weeks ago, FBI retired case file reviews with Jerry Williams. I've listened to a couple episodes of that. Fantastic. Definitely worth listening to. It's all true crime stuff from the FBI agents who were there. And then I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but there's a great podcast called Never Not Funny with Jimmy Pardo.
Pardo.
Pardo. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jimmy Pardo. And I listen to it kind of on and off. I'll go through a little, a few months where I listen to it and then I don't listen for a while and then I come back. But his show is always really good, really funny. It's almost formatted like a morning talk show, morning radio talk show. And Jimmy Pardo is really great. So check that out if you get a chance. It may not be to your taste, but it is a really, really good show.
He's the GOAT. I mean, his podcast is, people talk about like WTF with Mark Maron and Comedy Bang Bang with Scott Aukerman. But Jimmy Pardo's podcast predates theirs by like 2-3 years.
It does. And you can hear the influences.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In those other shows when you listen to them. I still love Comedy Bang Bang, but but Never Not Funny is really one of those just consistently day in and day out is a great show. So, and then I got the current album from the band 2002, who was on with us last week. I believe that's called Hummingbird. Is that right, Alan?
Hummingbird, yes, sir.
Yeah. And I've listened through that a couple of times this week, just as I was working and just trying to kind of calm the atmosphere. Just a fantastic album. Every song on there is spectacular. So check out the episode last week. It's an interview with the band 2002, and check out their album Hummingbird. It is really spectacular.
I'm glad you ended with that, because if you're done, I'm going to start my list with that very album that I downloaded. It's available digital by the time this episode drops. I think the physical one should be hitting stores, but yeah, 2002 by the New Age Group. That is the name of the New Age Group. The name of the album, Hummingbird. Fantastic.
Awesome.
If you're into Enya, if you're into Yanni, if you're into that kind of new age kind of spa music, kick back, relax, close your eyes, drift off. It is incredible. Yeah, I've been listening to that. Podcasts, I've been listening to our friends Measuring the Score, a film composer who likes to go review other film scores and see what works and what doesn't. My buds over across the pond in the UK, the 60MW podcast. They just had a couple of episodes drop this week. One, the Spotlight Reflection Show, where they go back and watch a movie that they loved when they were kids, and they go, does it still stand up as an adult? And they review it. And always a lot of fun. Our good friends Radio Labyrinth, Tim Andrews returned with the Lingonberry episode with some of the problems going on at the IKEA. That's why they called it the Lingonberry episode, whatever. It was really funny. It was great to hear Tim back. I also like to listen to the Nostalgic Pod Blast, which is a show that comes on Facebook Live, and I think you can find it on Fistful of Radio. It's a guy who likes to look back at old movies, TV shows, and talk about them. The Marriage Fit podcast is a show my wife and I started earlier this year for telling the stories of divorced parents and blended families and all that good fun. And our good friends, the Indiana Jones Minute, they have returned from their long hiatus and they are continuing Indiana Jones 4, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Caroline.
That's a mouthful, y'all.
Yeah. I don't ever watch like regular stuff. I was like, all the stuff I do all day is just listen to podcasts and work. So
I love it. I love it. Hey, you keep us in business, so I appreciate you. Okay, so for listening, I have been doing a lot of swimming laps in the pool, trying to, as Walt mentioned, some of us put on some COVID pounds. So doing my laps, and but I'm also doing the Christmas podcast. So I put on the Beach Boys Christmas album for the last couple of days, and I've been swimming to that, and I love it because it kind of puts me in this kind of weird, twisted, I'm at the beach, but we're celebrating Christmas kind of feel. So I've been loving that. I kind of, I can do a pretty wicked We Three Kings. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, you guys, and I'm not going to do it here because it's too much.
Can I just say, and I know you talked about Christmas movies. There is really no wrong time for Christmas music. Walt knows how much I love Christmas. So
that's what we were talking about, especially like it's really hot here. Like, here's a little factoid you guys could have thrown in your news. I learned recently that bras fuse to your skin at 130 degrees. And so I am leading the march for put those bras away, ladies, because we cannot take a risk here.
I agree. You should not damage the goods.
That's what I say. And so it got to 108 the other day. And I was like, warning, hazard warning, everybody. Take them off, because we don't know what's going on. So, yeah. So I've just been swimming and trying to cool off around here. But then we turn off all the lights because good old ERCOT here in Texas is up our butts about using the power. So we're trying not to. And you guys have snuck into our Nest thermostats and actually are turning them up.
I heard that if you signed up for any of their programs that they're going in. Yep.
So I was like, why is it 76 in here? And then turns out, we got twisted up at a couple notches. But turning off all the lights, drawing the shades, and turning on a Christmas movie when it's 108 was pretty much the bomb. Loving that. And then for podcasts, actually, Mike turned me on to a podcast recently. It's called The Deep Dive with Jessica and June. And I was listening to that one. They specifically had an interview with Lindsay Sloan. And it was super good. It was all about being in your 40s and 50s and still being super sexy and just feeling yourself and enjoying your life, even though, you may not be 20, but, you're still a pretty hot chick. So it's kind of my jam.
Excellent. I like it. I've not heard of The Deep Dive, so it might be an interesting one to
check out.
Check out.
I'm sure that Mike could tell you lots about it. He's trying to get in touch with his feminine self.
Well, you know why? So the draw to it is it's Jessica St. Clair and June Diane Raphael. So if you listen to How Did This Get Made, the Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, June Diane Raphael movie podcast, then June. This is her newest project, and Jessica St. Clair is a longtime improv comic person. They also happen to be best friends behind the scenes and in real life. And so they're both at an age, in their late 40s, early 50s, and they're just making a podcast for themselves kind of thing. So I was drawn to it because of who they are, because I find them funny. And then I think it's an interesting topic and just a different kind of point of view that I obviously wouldn't have myself. I listen to a lot of podcasts in addition to our own, which if you guys watch TV, you should go check out any of our TV review podcasts. Yellowstone is coming back. We have a great Yellowstone podcast. Handmaid's Tale just finished. Escaping Gilead that Caroline and Paul do. Kevin Can Fuck Himself. You should go listen to our Kevin Can Podcast himself. The Christmas podcast. Get that Christmas joy all year round. Not stuff that I do. Season 3 of Neighborhood Listen just came out today. That's Paul F. Tompkins and Nicole Parker. It's a long-form improv show using, those neighborhood apps that are out there, whose ever chicken is yelling in the morning, shut that up, one of those kind of like apps that neighborhood
like Next
have.
Door, stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the conceit of this show of Neighborhood Listen is Paul and Nicole, they play neighbors who are reading posts on a fictitious app in Gravity Falls. And so they basically read the whole conceit is they're reading real stories. They've changed the names of the people and some street names, but the stories themselves are accurate. And so they're just improvising. Then they'll bring on the person who I'm trying to think of one was throwing rocks at her neighbor's drone because it was spying on her sunbathing. That was a real story from this app. They brought on, an improv person will come on and be this woman who reported it and made the post on the app. And they just kind of riff on it. So if you're a Comedy Bang Bang fan, it's the cousin to Comedy Bang Bang.
And Paul F. Tompkins, in my mind, is one of the funniest improv people out there.
Yeah.
His work on Super Ego.
Yes.
The whole team of Super Ego was amazing, but Paul F. Tompkins is just awesome.
Unmatched. I mean, you go check him out if you like more improv stuff. I listen to a lot of that. Comedy Bang Bang, obviously. Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is an old podcast, but they've been doing re-releases during pandemic for like charity reasons.
Yep.
Mark Evan Jackson and Mark Gagliardi, and Paul Tompkins is a frequent guest. Oh, I a lot. Star Trek people. Gates McFadden, Dr. Crusher from Star Trek TNG. She just started a new podcast. We had her on. We interviewed her called Investigates. Basically, she talks to friends from like TNG and from Star Trek, but not about Star Trek, about like their personal lives. Like I learned like Christopher Reeve stiffed Jonathan Frakes when he worked for a moving company. Christopher Reeve hired Jonathan Frakes' moving company to move his girlfriend from New York to DC. They did the job, and Christopher Reeve never paid the bill.
Wow.
Wild. Totally wild. So it's like,
gosh.
So it's like those kinds of stories. So it's not really ever about Star Trek, other than these guys are just all family and have been friends for 30 plus years from Star Trek. And so Gates McFadden hosts that podcast. So.
And I'm sorry, what is that one called?
It's called Gates McFadden Investigates. Who do you think you are? That's like her shtick is like,
got it.
Who do you think you are? Yeah. So that's it. I can go on. I just checked my Stitcher. I have 56 different podcasts in my Stitcher, like different shows.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I listen. I'm pretty much caught up on all of them.
Wow.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, well, because while I'm reading those private placement memorandums, I need some kind of background noise. And so there are podcasts going.
Every one of those folks going, thanks, we're background noise. Good. That's awesome.
Exactly. Well, or are they the focus and the PPM is the background noise?
That's probably the case. Guys, we have gone a little longer than normal, but I figured with you two it was going to do that. I want to, before we let Walt tell everybody about us, let's remind everybody about you guys, because a lot of the shows that, Michael, you were just talking about, and a lot of the folks, a lot of the shows you guys are both on, as well as the rest of your team, all can be found on your website and through your various entities. Tell us once again, how do we follow Pod Clubhouse?
Well, you could go to podclubhouse.com. That's the best place to get everything. We're also on every single podcast app, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, all the other ones that I'm forgetting right now. But we're also on every social media channel, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Mostly Twitter is at Pod Clubhouse. You can catch us on YouTube. We're just starting to put some of our podcasts up on YouTube at youtube.com/Pod Clubhouse. And I think that's it. So.
Walt, very quickly for folks that are brand new to our audience because they came over here to listen to Caroline and Michael do their thing that they do so eloquently and fun. I mean, there's going to be moments where I sit back and go, we haven't talked for like 15 minutes. It's just the guest, which is going to be awesome. How do people learn more about us?
Well, there are two great ways to learn about us. The first one is to go to our website, which is thewilderride.com. And on there, you're going to find everything you need to know about us, including past guests, current guests, past episodes, all our work on Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, and all kinds of bio information about our former guests and everything else you need to know about us. The other thing we'd like you to do is, Alan has mentioned earlier, is to go to facebook.com/thewilderride, follow us there, and then a button's going to pop up that says join the listeners group. So you want to do that. There are 3 questions just to make sure you're not some kind of crazy Albanian bot trying to sneak in and
could be Lithuanian, but we won't say that.
The poll. Yeah, that's right. Some drunk Lithuanian.
We are very hospitable boys.
No, it's very good. You're going to do what we tell you. Go. You're going to like
you
it.
You do what I tell you.
So you want to join us there, and there's no politics or religion or anything.
Plenty of places for that elsewhere.
Fun. Yep, absolutely. And so that's a great place to catch up on who we are and find out more about our show, and then just other things. Oh, and you can vote on the weekly poll of what crappy movie to subject me to.
And as I say every week, take a second to rate and review not just our show, but all the ones you heard the folks here from Pod Clubhouse. They mentioned a bunch of shows. If you try them, you listen to them, you like them, take a second to rate and review. More importantly, use that share button and let everybody know what it is you've just stumbled across, what you've listened to, and help spread the word. It is a great community when we all help each other out. And come on back next week. I'll tell you who's coming up in just a minute, but I wanted to say first to our special guests, Caroline and Michael from Pod Clubhouse. Thank you guys so much for being here and being on our show.
You're so welcome. Thank you guys so much for inviting us.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you very much. We never get to be on this side of the microphone, so it was a real pleasure. Thanks.
The pleasure was everyone's, Mike.
We have thoroughly enjoyed having you and letting you run rampant in our own clubhouse here, our own fun house. Actually, ours is more like a wild fun house. So we appreciate you guys being here. Next week is actually the official. Our Monday normally recording time falls on the official 4th of July holiday, and I think Walt and I made the executive decision of taking a week off to enjoy the birthday of America. But we will be back the following week. We're going to be joined by a veteran broadcaster, newscaster, weather anchor, someone who just recently retired, Karen Minton, a name known throughout the Southeast. She's been everywhere, including the Weather Channel, but retired from WSB TV. She is going to crawl out of retirement to join us and chat about her career from the very first day out of college all the way through to retiring in a major market here in the U.S. But to catch it, you're going to come back in 2 weeks for a brand new edition of the Wilder Ride Listener's Lounge. Guys, that was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
I'm so used to being like, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
I always say, thanks for listening.
Well, I want to say thanks for being here and doing all the talking, because you guys were awesome. This was fantastic. There's nothing better than having a guest that isn't afraid to talk.
We were very silly.
It was a lot of fun. It was fun to not have to worry about doing anything other than just opening up the mouth and speak. So.
Well, and we'll definitely have to have y'all back.
Yeah,
we would love to, and definitely we want to invite you guys over. I don't know what week it is because Mike hides the spreadsheet, but whenever we do Die Hard, please come on over and come talk to us because he keeps it under lock and key. I'm tired of searching for it. I just gave it up.
All right, guys, gotta go. I'm already getting word that I've been too loud down here. No, it's all good.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you guys seriously so much. Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right.